Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. After breaking up with the school beauty, I became a martial arts master. Chapter 31. Several people separated outside Yangwo town. Lin Yi took a car back to Fang Yi's home alone. She almost fell asleep on the way. Breakthrough is too mentally exhausting. Every time I drive my spiritual power to activate the divine axe, I need to concentrate. It's even more tiring than staying up all night for a month. Ordinary people will die suddenly after staying up all night for a few days, but the pioneers will not. Lin Yi spends several times more time studying than others every day, which is also one of her secrets to maintaining her grades. Opened the door and took off her shoes. Lin Yi was about to go back to her room to sleep, but suddenly noticed someone sitting on the sofa. Cousin Fang Yi. He was drinking coffee and playing with his mobile phone. "Are you back?" "Yeah." There was no extra conversation. This is how the cousins lived together for so long. "Are you okay? You look a little pale. Studying is tiring." Lin Yi responded tiredly. Her excuse for going out was to attend a study party. It is normal to have a pale face after studying for a long time. "Go and have a rest." The cousin smiled lightly, looking very understanding. "If you are very tired, why don't you cook tonight and order takeout?" "I'm not sure how long I need to rest. If possible, I would like to try to cook by myself." Lin Yi nodded to her cousin. If she insisted on cooking, Fang Yi would not stop her. After all, he was just sitting back and enjoying the fruits of his labor. Fang Yi watched her walk into her room. "You work hard." "I don't know if it's an illusion." Lin Yi heard her cousin whisper this sentence. If it was just for learning, she certainly wouldn't work so hard, but the great changes in the world are about to come, and cultivation is the fate of the pioneers. But there is no need to say more to her cousin who is an ordinary person. Lin Yi shook her head slightly and walked into her room. The air was very hot, and it was uncomfortable to have clothes sticking to her body, so Lin Yi went to take a shower. When she walked out of the bathroom with her hair wiped, martial arts team had already sent 99+ messages. Lin Yi clicked on it and saw a screen full of red hearts from a beautiful 81-year-old young woman. 81-year-old beautiful young woman. "So handsome, so handsome, so handsome, that knife is so handsome. You know, when I saw that knife cut the vines, I was completely controlled for 30 seconds, and I couldn't recover at all." Cat holding his heart. Online love was cheated of 50 cents. "I can totally understand. The moment that dazzling sun appeared, I declared that he was the ancient Greek god in charge of young attributes." 81-year-old beautiful young woman. "No wonder I went out to calculate 2 hexagrams today, 1 bad and 1 good, it turns out that he is our best sign." Lin Yi. Are these two people a little too crazy? She wiped her hair and typed and sent a message. "Yi Feng Heju. You said, that pioneer also came to find vines. We don't know each other, how could he come to save us?" Online love was cheated of 50 cents. You mean it, maybe, probably, is it possible that it is due to my beauty? 81-year-old beautiful young woman. You haven't even started dating yet, but you're already in love. Danmo Wenzu. Maybe it's just a coincidence. A lurking member who rarely shows up appears. Wenzu is the young man with the 3-star ghost axe who broke through the defense. It seems that he has recovered after being broken by the genius high attribute pioneer. Yi Feng Heju. Did you invite him to join? 81-year-old beautiful young woman. Of course not. Are we worthy? Online dating scammed of 50 cents. Of course not. Are we worthy? X2. Danmo Wenzu. I didn't invite him, mainly for 2 reasons. One is that the other party's strength is far superior to ours, it would be too presumptuous to invite him rashly, and second, we don't know the other party's identity. Of course, I don't mean to say that he is a bad person. He saved us, and we are very grateful, but maybe the other party has a special identity. Seeing this sentence, Lin Yi stopped wiping her hair, her eyes slightly fixed, and drifted out the window. The sunlight sprinkled on the curtains like broken gold. Yi Feng Heju. Actually, listening to the scenes you described, I have a strange idea. Yi Feng Heju. Do you think that the person who saved us is the one in the underground river? As soon as this was said, the group was silent for 5 seconds. 81-year-old beautiful young woman. So it is possible. The other party is an extreme young attribute pioneer, and he is lurking near Tai City. The overlap rate is as high as 99%. Online dating was cheated of a huge sum of money. High-level attribute pioneers are so rare. There may be two identical leaves in the world, but there can't be two identical high-level attribute people. It must be him. Danmo Wenzu. Well, I think it's possible too. High-level attributes are too rare. We have only seen this one so far. I think the probability of it being him is very high. Yi Feng Hiju. I think so too. Yi Feng Hiju. But why did he save us? Lin Yi thought about it, but couldn't find a suitable reason. When the underground river appeared, the other party obviously brought a team of his own, and he even used that knife to deter the team members in order to protect them. This news was spread by another team. In their description, the situation at that time was even more exaggerated. That knife was like a long rainbow piercing the sun, and the sky was swallowed by the surging white light. It was like someone drew a horizontal stroke on the rice paper, drawing a daytime, and there was a flame explosion in the daytime, and we were forced out of the cave. I dare say that no pioneer of the same level in Sha country dared to take that knife head on. In the future, if you see him appear in the place of great change, everyone should be careful and retreat consciously. Lin Yi thought it was made up before. Now it seems that what this person said is still a bit conservative. Just when the discussion in the group was in full swing, suddenly, a message appeared. Galan, if you find him, please notify me. The moment the message was sent, the 99+ group chat stopped. Everyone was silent because of shock. The account named Galan had a default avatar, as if he had just created a name and forgotten the account after registration. But now, this ghostly account actually spoke. Danmo Wenju. It's really strange. Is this the first time that Galan has spoken in this group? Danmo Wenju felt a little complicated at the moment. He was arrogant and thought that in this group, only Galan and himself were top talents standing in the first echelon, and they should be equal, but Galan never paid attention to him. This was the only time he spoke in the group. For the young attributed pioneer today, it felt that the Tao heart that had just been repaired was faintly breaking again. Yi Fenghaju. I understand, Sister Galan. Lin Yi put down her phone and exhaled lightly. As expected, the Dark River incident was known to everyone and had exploded in the pioneer circle. Even Sister Galan, a cultivator who doesn't care about worldly affairs, knows about it and takes the initiative to ask about that person. This is the first time in history. Galan's strength is stronger than all of them. It can be said that they are not on the same level at all. For someone who even she noticed, other forces must have been ready to make a move. After all, he is a powerful pioneer with high-level yang attributes. It is not surprising even if the official personally comes out to recruit him. It's a pity that I still didn't see what that person looks like. Suddenly, Lin Yi woke up as if from a dream, frowned slightly, and glanced at the door. The person outside the door disappeared without a trace. Strange, when did my cousin go out? I didn't even notice it. I must be too tired. I was thinking about things just now and my mind was confused. At this moment, Fang Yi was riding on the street in the sunshine. He was looking for a carrier with the desolate attribute. How did we get here? In front of him was a forest. The forest was located on the edge of Tai City. There was a document saying that it would be built into a park, but this forest was too big and it was very difficult to tame it. Now it stands here as an ordinary forest. Looking around, it was full of lush green. The desolate attribute should be closer to plant-type things, at least it must not be put on me. After all, these are evil attributes. Putting them on me may have a bad reaction, and even conflict with the thunder attribute in my hand. Fang Yi thought. The desolate attribute is actually corrosion in essence. Corrosion is very dangerous. If you are not careful, you will hurt yourself. At this moment, he suddenly thought of the vines hanging down from the sky, and his eyes narrowed slightly. The best way is to copy something similar to the vines falling from the sky. The reason why the vines fell from the sky is because at that moment they felt the rich spiritual energy of revival, and they chose to evolve, so they gave birth to the attribute of desolate power. So, I need to pick a lucky person, a plant that can resonate with my spiritual energy and express a sense of intimacy. All things have spirits. He wants to find a plant that has some intimacy with him and give it the attribute of desolation. Thinking of this, Fang Yi walked in the forest and began to release his own spiritual energy. He is now a 3-star ghost axe, with a majestic spiritual energy, covering the forest without any problem. Boom. Once the spiritual energy is released, it will flow out of his body like a clear spring, spreading to every corner of the forest. As the spiritual energy spread, everything in the forest seemed to have a new vitality. The trees swayed under the nourishment of the spiritual energy, the leaves sparkled with emerald green light, and the flowers bloomed with brilliant colors under the inspiration of the spiritual energy. Crystal dewdrops sparkled on the petals, exuding an intoxicating fragrance. The forest seemed to become fresh in an instant. When the gentle spiritual energy brushed over their heads, Fang Yi felt a surge of rhythm. This was the response of the plants to their own spiritual energy. There is a response, but the degree is not enough. Fang Yi closed his eyes and walked incensed in the forest. After walking for an unknown period of time, he stopped and stood in front of a field of wild flowers. In front of the colorful big flowers next to it, this wild flower was really inconspicuous. Not only was it small, but the color was also pale. But Fang Yi squatted down and gently stretched out his fingers. A wisp of transparent spiritual energy overflowed. The wild flower stretched its neck like a living thing and came forward to touch the spiritual energy. It trembled slightly and absorbed all the spiritual energy from Fang Yi's fingertips, feeling very satisfied. Very spiritual. This flower is obviously a plant, but when it touches my spiritual energy, it is like a greedy and enthusiastic puppy. It absorbs my spiritual energy and comes to rub its head against my fingers. In the whole forest, this flower has the greatest reaction to my spiritual energy. It is very suitable for implanting the desolate attribute. It's decided to be you. Do you want to forcibly implant the desolate attribute into this thing? Yes. The voice fell. Suddenly, a stream of green light flowed out from Fang Yi. Like a trickle of water, it flowed into the flower, watering the wild flower from top to bottom. The petals of the wild flower trembled, and the stems and leaves climbed up the thick green, as if they had inhaled a drop of green ink, and grew wildly, instantly emitting a surging and strong breath, which was like a hymn sung by an angel. It was obviously a scene full of vitality. But, the next second, boom, a green aura spread out with the wild flower as the center. In an instant, the surrounding flowers and plants withered rapidly. The towering ancient tree closest to the flower was originally lush and green. But when it was brushed by the green aura, starting from the tender green leaves at the top, a dull withered color gradually spread, quickly spreading along the trunk, and the fragile branches began to make crisp sounds. A tree of green leaves instantly turned yellow. A rabbit ran on the grass, and jumped up with its powerful legs. The next moment, it turned into a corpse in the air. The power of desolation. It was like an invisible devil's hand gently brushing every flower, grass and tree around, plundering their vitality crazily. The originally lush greenery turned into a dull one. The blooming bright flowers withered rapidly under this irresistible force, and the petals fell like feathers blown by the wind. The spiders and insects around fled in fear. In just a few seconds, the forest turned from green to gray, as if it was destroyed by the long torture of the years, and no trace of life could be found. Fang Yi looked at this scene and couldn't help sighing. In 5 seconds, the whole forest was almost sucked dry. Is this the power of desolation? So domineering. And under his feet, this little wildflower that originally looked a little sick, because it absorbed the vitality of its kind, suddenly became extremely bright and had a kind of enchanting beauty. Fang Yi picked the flower. When the flower left the soil, the rapid desolation of the surrounding area seemed to be paused. The tree was half green and half yellow. Half of the flower withered, and the other half was still in full bloom. The power of desolation has not stopped. Fang Yi could feel that the flower in his hand was still absorbing vitality. However, compared with the reckless extraction before, it was much more relaxed now. A faint vitality flowed from the surrounding trees to the petals of the flower, as if an invisible thin line connected them, a subtle symbiotic state. It's amazing. Can it survive without roots? Fang Yi was a little surprised. The flower was rubbing against his palm, like a petted little animal, madly attracting the owner's attention. Moreover, when it was pulled out of the soil, the feeling did not diminish. It seemed to have intelligence. But before he chose this flower, it was clearly just an ordinary wild flower. Could it be that after being given attributes, this plant also began to evolve? It seems to have opened some kind of evolutionary shackles. After Fang Yi left, the smell in the forest lingered for a long time. The mist covered the sky above the entire forest, like a layer of gauze, or like a translucent barrier, separating the two worlds. The abnormal value exceeds 30, what happened? Soon, a team of people arrived. They were wearing neat dark green uniforms and bracelets that monitored abnormal concentrations. The bracelet can measure the abnormal concentration of spiritual energy around. Once it exceeds 10, it must be isolated immediately and ordinary people are prohibited from contacting it. The abnormal value of the north gate of the Tsinghua and Peking University campus was fluctuating between 8 and 10. Later, it suddenly exceeded 10 and was temporarily taken over by the military. And now, the abnormal value of this forest has reached 30. The degree of danger is so great that even the pioneers must be extremely cautious. At this moment, they were stunned by the scene in front of them. The forest in front of them was all yellow and barren. A female researcher squatted down and inserted the detection instrument into the soil under her feet. The large-scale withering of vegetation is usually due to local moisture, light, and soil. The air humidity is normal, the surface humidity and temperature are normal, and there is no problem with the sunlight. The plants here seem to have withered collectively in less than a few seconds. It's a bit like humans have been drained of their energy. This is too strange. Is it caused by the great changes in the world? The female researcher took a step forward and was about to go forward to take a closer look. Don't get closer. Suddenly, the old man in the lead shouted, stretched out his hand, and pulled her back at once. The female researcher staggered and almost fell because of his excited behavior. Teacher, the old man stared at the forest with a deep frown. Don't touch it, this is the desolate attribute. Desolate attribute. The young people in uniforms looked confused. They are the pioneers of the Spiritual Energy Recovery Plant Research Department. Their main business is plant research, but at this moment, the spiritual energy has not yet been fully revived, and their knowledge in this area is blank. The old man is their teacher and knows much more than them. At this moment, he slowly spoke. Have you ever heard of vines falling from the sky? Hearing this, everyone's face changed. Vines falling from the sky. As members of the spiritual plant group, they knew this very well. This is a phenomenon that cannot be explained by science. In the official archives, it has been classified as A-level mutation and cannot be solved. I heard that the vines are very ferocious. The official has sent many pioneers in, and all of them have been killed. Because it is extremely dangerous, it is classified as A-level. The fundamental reason why the vines are dangerous is the desolate attribute it possesses. The old man explained. The desolate attribute can extract the vitality of the surrounding creatures and take everything around it for itself. Hearing this, the female researcher's face turned pale. She was scared. Just now, if the teacher hadn't held her back, she would have been very likely to accidentally be infected with the desolate breath. Extracting vitality, doesn't that mean I will die the moment I step in? That's right. The old man nodded. No one can get close to the plant that has awakened the desolate attribute, because there is a dead zone next to it, and anyone who steps into it will be devoured of all vitality. I have seen the information of another desolate plant in Sha country, which is located in the ancient tree forbidden zone in Kang City. There is an ancient tree stained with decay, which has turned the entire forest into a forbidden zone. Anyone who approaches will be pierced and their vitality will be extracted. Hearing this, the researchers were shocked. The world has changed drastically. Not only humans, but also animals and plants have begun to mutate. Based on the current known situation, the desolate attribute should be the strongest attribute that plants can awaken. After all, it can absorb other vitality, which is too domineering. The old man sighed. Looking at the decaying forest in front of them, everyone nodded in agreement. I saw that the deep forest was full of cracks and spots, with dead branches and leaves tangled together, and even the weeds were dry and withered, lifeless. Such top-level predatory ability was really too terrifying. Strange, teacher, you just said that there are only 2 places with desolate attributes, but the vines in the sky did not appear here, which means that this is a newly born desolate place. I'm afraid so, the old man replied. The researcher was shocked. Feeling the power of the desolate attribute, they just felt incredible. Desolate was born here. However, when they looked at the forest, they did not find the source of desolate here. The source had disappeared. Only special cloud vines can wander around. Other plants are rooted in the soil and cannot move. In other words, the source did not go away, but was forcibly taken away. Could it be dug away by someone? Everyone took a breath. This speculation is undoubtedly the most reasonable. But the problem is, how did the other party get close to the desolate attribute and dig it away? You must know that after the ancient tree awakened, the surrounding area instantly became a restricted area. The power of desolate was pervasive. Living things could not get close. Once they got close, they would be sucked up and their bodies would be gone. At present, the desolate atmosphere is decreasing. 5 minutes after they came here, the concentration has dropped to 25. The desolate atmosphere here was so strong before that we couldn't get close at all. How did he get in? If someone can do it, then his identity is worth pondering. After this guess, everyone was silent. I don't know how long it took. The old man sighed softly. If you want to dig out the source from the desolate forbidden land, you need strong strength. Is the other party's sense of smell more acute than ours? In a high-rise apartment, Fang Yi pushed open the door, and there was a plastic bag in his hand with a flower pot in it compared to when he went out before. It's my first time to grow flowers, and I don't even have a vase. Fang Yi took out the flower pot. The white and plain porcelain pot, without any fancy patterns, only sold for 5 yuan. Fang Yi first poured the soil into the porcelain pot, and then took out the wild flower from his shirt pocket and buried it in the soil. The flower, half the size of a palm, looked small compared to the pot. This flower has the attribute of desolation, and it will continue to practice. It can be regarded as a capable assistant I have cultivated. Fang Yi looked at the flower pot with satisfaction. A flower with the attribute of desolation can help a lot in battle. Because of this special attribute, sometimes it can even produce many unexpected effects. In actual combat, strength is only a part of it. What is more important is who has more trump cards. After doing all this, Fang Yi put the flower pot on the windowsill. Just then, ding dong, the mobile phone pop-up message prompt. Lao Wang, Yizzy, I'm back to Taishi, come out for a drink. Lao Wang. Fang Yi was stunned. Looking at this strange and familiar note, a long-lost feeling surged in his heart. Isn't this my childhood friend who went to the army and hasn't seen me for 3 years? Fan. You kid, are you back? Lao Wang. Yes, come on, see you at the old place. I have a big secret to tell you, don't be too surprised when you hear it later. Old Wang's full name is Wang Liang. He is Fang Yi's neighbor. They were deskmates from elementary school to junior high school. They could have continued their deskmate relationship in high school, but he patted his butt and said he was going to join the army. He left for 3 years. During the 3 years of high school, Wang Liang had no news. Fang Yi was also busy with school, so the contact gradually faded. Unexpectedly, just after the exam, when he finally had some free time, old Wang also came back. Secret. What secrets can this kid have? Thinking of his military affairs. Fang Yi couldn't help showing a curious look. The Aura Resurrection Association is currently the official pioneer association. So, what about the army? Wang Liang, who is in the army, has he already started to contact the Aura Resurrection? After Fang Yi and Wang Liang met, there was no sense of strangeness after not seeing each other for 3 years. The two grew up together. After a strong hug, they immediately found the feeling of the past. Why are you staring at me? Fang Yi curled his lips. I always feel that you have changed a lot. Wang Liang's eyes were sharp. Maybe the training in the army made his eyes look like a wolf. Fang Yi was speechless. It's been 3 years. It will always change. You have changed a lot too. Wang Liang was burly and majestic. He exuded a sense of fortitude that was influenced by military life. Fang Yi couldn't help but sigh that the saying was true. If you serve in the army, you will regret it for 3 years, and if you don't serve in the army, you will regret it for a lifetime. The two looked at each other and finally smiled at each other. Where are you going? The old place. Let's go, I'll drive. You bought a car. Fang Yi half-jokingly cursed, and then got into Wang Liang's car. This was a small car worth more than 100,000 yuan. It was very cost-effective, with a tough appearance and a large interior space, which was very suitable for Wang Liang. The two of them came to the fried skewers shop where they often ate when they were young. They ordered a full table. I'll treat you. Wang Liang patted his chest, looking very much like the generous and honest appearance when he was young, which made Fang Yi feel very emotional. Now they have all grown up, and the unclean fried skewers that they loved to eat when they were young are now tasteless in their mouths. Only the spicy taste of the seasonings that hit the taste buds made him feel a little more energetic. But both of them ate a lot. From time to time, they recalled the fun things in the past, and then laughed at each other. These 3 years, I have deep feelings, life in the army, ah. The two clinked glasses and did not let Wang Liang continue. Wang Liang knew that life in the army was destined to be not peaceful, especially during this special period recently. Wang Liang looked much more mature, but men's maturity is always forced, and he must have worked very hard. Fang Yi patted his shoulder and said, "You have made it now, haven't you? You have become a qualified soldier. Go to hell. What about you? I got into a junior college." Oh, the atmosphere suddenly became quiet, and it seemed a little awkward. Perhaps in everyone's subconscious, the future of junior college students is destined to be bleak, but soon, Fang Yi suddenly felt something strange. Wang Liang's eyes in front of him became scorching, and Fang Yi was a little at a loss. "Next, I will tell you something. You may think I am joking and comforting you, but you must listen to it in your heart. In the near future, maybe a few months later, maybe a year later, the academic qualifications and wealth that we value now will become the most worthless waste paper, and everything will be reshuffled." Fang Yi's heart moved slightly. He naturally knew about this. And when he heard what Wang Liang said, his heart was slightly warmed. It was not surprising that the military knew this news, but Wang Liang must have been ordered to keep it secret and not to leak a single bit. But Wang Liang said it at this time. It was obvious that he wanted to give Fang Yi a subtle hint, so that he could predict the coming of the spiritual energy revival in advance. After saying this, Wang Liang also reminded Fang Yi very seriously that he should not reveal anything he said today. Fang Yi nodded heavily. The two looked at each other, and their tacit understanding was beyond words. Ding ding ding. At this moment, the bell that seemed to have passed through the years suddenly rang, waking the two of them up suddenly. School is over. This is right at the gate of No. 4 Middle School. The series of melodious and crisp bells seemed to awaken the memories that seeped out of their blood, making them feel goosebumps. Looking at the students jumping out one by one, they smiled at each other and enjoyed this relaxed and lively atmosphere very much. What is the future? The future is an unknown road, and everything they see is shrouded in darkness. They can only walk out step by step, and now this relaxed atmosphere makes them relax. Were we so active when we were young? Anyway, happiness was very simple at that time. The two looked at the fried skewers in their hands and ate them more fragrantly. Wang Liang came back for a mission this time. He asked for a short leave and had to rush back after a meal. After a good meal, Wang Liang insisted on sending Fang Yi off, and Fang Yi did not refuse. As soon as the car drove out of the underground garage, the phone rang suddenly. "Reach this location immediately within 3 minutes." "Yes, sir." Wang Liang was shocked. The hot-tempered female voice on the other end of the phone was his superior. Although the superior had a bad temper, he was a very good person. He promised him a temporary leave and would not go back on his word. He did not expect that something would go wrong at this time. "Is there an accident?" "Yes." A brief phone call diluted the joy of the two people's reunion and reminiscing about the past, and the atmosphere in the car suddenly became depressing. The feeling of Wang Liang as if he was facing a great enemy made Fang Yi more deeply aware that he was no longer that young boy, but an iron-blooded soldier. "Yizzy, I'm in a hurry now. When we get to the place where I'm going to perform my mission, you can go by yourself." "Sorry, the mission is urgent. If you see anything, just pretend you didn't see it," Wang Liang said seriously. He thought about dropping Fang Yi off on the roadside, but he had to arrive in 3 minutes, so he didn't have time. Perhaps, he also had selfish motives and wanted to use this accident to let Fang Yi see the truth of the world, beyond his cognition. The world he thought of had already been turned upside down. "Yeah." Fang Yi nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. The car rushed on the road, leaving the traffic lights far behind. Wang Liang's skilled red light running looks, it seems that he has been ticketed many times, but he has to make up his mind in an emergency. What he has to deal with is to race against time. Even a second late may cause unbearable casualties. Combined with Wang Liang's performance, Fang Yi has already had a rough guess about the phone call just now. The matter that Lao Wang is going to deal with is probably related to the great changes in the world. The military obviously knows about the revival of spiritual energy. If something goes wrong during the journey, they will definitely send someone to deal with it secretly. But there are too many things involved in the great changes in the world, such as the vine that wanders everywhere and the 2 disgusting anomalies I solved before. These are all problems that need to be dealt with. Since those anomalies were solved by the Spiritual Qi Cultivation Association, then, what is the military responsible for now? The car left Taishi very quickly. Arrived at a place full of mountains and forests. As soon as Fang Yi stepped into this place, he found that the density of spiritual energy here was extremely high. The spiritual energy flowing in the air rushed into his body, as if a fish entered the sea. I didn't expect that the spiritual energy has not yet fully recovered, and there is such a rich spiritual energy here. The pioneers are extremely sensitive to the concentration of spiritual energy. Fang Yi can feel that the concentration of spiritual energy here is more than dozens of times higher than other places in Taishi, and it is almost catching up with the place where the world has changed. I have arrived at the periphery of restricted area No. 19. Abnormal concentration. Have you entered? Okay, I'll be there soon. Wang Liang has been on the phone since he entered this area. He did not avoid Fang Yi, and Fang Yi also heard a lot of information from his phone conversation. Nowadays, although the spiritual energy recovery has not been fully opened, there are still some places with rich spiritual energy, but each place with rich spiritual energy is under the supervision of the military. Just like here, a high wall prohibiting passage was erected outside, and several police cars were parked next to it. When others saw this scene, they would avoid it from a distance. Even the pioneers would not force their way into the military's territory. From a distance, Fang Yi could hear a few roars of wild beasts. These places are opportunities for pioneers, but there will also be some dangerous beasts. Some beasts are gentle and used by the military, while some beasts become abnormal, contaminated with dark attributes, and begin to mutate. We are here, Wang Liang suddenly spoke. A sign suddenly appeared in front of him. No. 19 Spiritual Restricted Area. There were many military soldiers at the door, wearing uniforms and imposing. A military pioneer team was stationed outside. From the aura, they were all pioneers, and their strength was not strong. They were all Ghost Axe 1-star and 2-star existences, but gathered together, giving people a very solid feeling. Verification passed. Enter. Wang Liang handed his certificate to the officer guarding the gate and soon got a pass. The gate slowly opened in front of him, and the car officially drove into the number 19 restricted area. After entering, Fang Yi realized that this should be a small spiritual military base, with military pioneers everywhere. They were in a hurry and solemn, as if something big had happened. Wang Liang drove all the way in and finally got off the car next to a valley. Roar. As soon as he opened the car door, he heard a terrifying roar, sharp and hoarse, like a cry from hell. It was a vicious dog. To be precise, it was a vicious dog that had begun to mutate abnormally. On the body of the vicious dog, the twisted shape of the muscles could be vaguely seen, as if it had been torn apart by the power of darkness, and its eyes flashed with strange light like blood-colored gems, revealing an evil breath. Flame spots began to grow on its white fur, like a shadow cast by the scorching sun, burning marks on its body, and between the flame spots, a deep dark red flashed from time to time, as if the shadow of the devil in the fire was dancing. Accompanied by the roar, it opened its bloody mouth. The surrounding air became distorted and was swallowed by the black flames in its mouth. Boom! A column of fire spewed out from its mouth, burning the sleeves of several soldiers in front of it, leaving a burn. The color of the flame was very strange. The blazing light revealed a terrible black air. Wang Liang's pupils shrank when he saw this scene. The abnormal fusion of the 2 attributes of darkness and fire makes this dog extremely ferocious and brutal. Several soldiers have been seriously injured. A clear voice came from the crowd. A female officer stood aside with a frown, with a hot body and a hot temper. She was a 4-star Ghost Axe warrior. Wang Liang. She spoke. A familiar voice, it seemed to be the officer who called Wang Liang. The female officer first glanced at Fang Yi, and then looked deeply at Wang Liang. Wang Liang lowered his head, not daring to meet her eyes. The military's spiritual energy forbidden area is strictly supervised, and ordinary people can't get in at all. But now is not the time to entangle this matter. The evil dog was still spitting out black flames, and a piece of flame passed, and many people were injured. "Come here quickly, I'm waiting for you," the female officer said. "Yes." Wang Liang gave Fang Yi a look and walked to the side of the female officer. Including the female officer, there were a total of 5 people surrounding the evil dog. Judging from the aura alone, except for the female officer who was 4 stars, the others were generally 1 star and 2 star. Even Wang Liang, who had just joined, was actually at the level of 2-star ghost axe. When Wang Liang stepped into it, it was as if the last piece of the puzzle was completed. Everyone moved their positions slightly. It seemed that they did not move much, but they trapped the vicious dog in the center tightly. "Zhang am I, Li Yu," the female officer gave an order and did not need to explain what to do. The two rushed out suddenly, and the spiritual energy on their bodies burst out instantly. They used spiritual energy to attack in front of the vicious dog, instantly attracting the maximum firepower of the vicious dog. Wang Liang and the remaining person surrounded from the other 2 directions and assisted from the side. The strongest female officer used their interference to tear open a hole and hurt the vicious dog by surprise. 3 seconds. Ah! The vicious dog howled to the sky, and a scar was cut on its back by the transparent spiritual energy, and blood flowed. It roared and stretched out its claws with dark attributes. The claws were stained with highly corrosive dark attributes. If they were touched, they would immediately lose their combat effectiveness. He grabbed the nearest Li Yu, but just when he was about to catch him, a stream of spiritual energy pierced its left eye. It cried out in pain, and Li Yu took the opportunity to escape. It was a female officer. The female officer stood at the farthest place, with the spiritual energy in her hand as a sword. She was the eyes of this team and the brain of the team. Everyone unconditionally entrusted their lives and backs to her, and turned into the blade in her hand. This team is obviously well trained. Gathered together, it is a ball of fire; scattered, it is a sky full of stars. Each of them is indispensable, and when combined together, they can burst out a powerful force far beyond their own strength. Under the powerful offensive of this team, the extremely arrogant and powerful dual-attribute vicious dog was actually tripped. Such strong coordination, is this the discipline of the army? Fang Yi took this scene in his eyes and admired it. No matter how well the Wild Pioneer team cooperated, it would be impossible to reach this state of 5 people in one. These 5 people obviously trusted each other, entrusted their lives, and completely relied on the commander. The female officer also understood their individual strengths and weaknesses. When Wang Liang was exhausted, she moved him away from the main battlefield in advance, buying him a lot of breathing time. If it continues like this, it will only be a matter of time before the vicious dog fails. The situation is clear. The 5-member team looked at each other and saw confidence in each other's eyes. As long as they can drag it out, they can subdue it. But at this moment, something unexpected happened. With a bang, the vicious dog was trapped in the encirclement of 5 people and was about to be dragged to death, but suddenly a powerful black fog erupted. The black fog filled the sky and covered the sun. "Retreat." The female officer Chu Lan's face changed suddenly. At the same time as the order came out, the other 4 people immediately evacuated from the vicious dog. The black fog brushed against the corners of their clothes, corroding and burning the corners of their clothes the moment they touched. An unpleasant smell of burning floated into everyone's nose. The black fog became bigger and thicker. Like a dense spider web, it covered the sky above everyone's head. The black fog was like a flame, burning and jumping in the air, burning more and more vigorously. In the black fog, a figure also slowly grew bigger. The vicious dog was originally an ordinary wolf dog, and its body was almost as tall as an adult woman when it stood up, but now, the figure slowly grew bigger and stronger in the explosion of the black fog. The muscles and bones were more than twice as thick as before, and the fur was as sharp as steel needles, piercing its back. The terrifying spots of fire on its body seemed to breathe, opening and closing constantly. The black fog was sucked into its body, and gradually, terrible bone spurs began to extend from the spots, which were white and sharp. The vicious dog, which was just like a trapped beast, easily tore their line apart with a bang when the bone spurs grew out. The barrier formed by the spiritual energy exploded like a broken star, turning into spiritual energy spots all over the sky. The 5 people were horrified when they saw this. It has completed its evolution. Chu Lan stared at the changes in the vicious dog. The dark attribute is powerful and domineering. The absolute corrosiveness makes it the most powerful nemesis of the Forerunners, and the newly grown bone spurs on the vicious dog in front of him now gather strong dark attributes. Once touched, death is certain. The black fog gradually dissipated. The vicious dog, which had just been panting heavily, stood up on all fours, with scorching flames coming out of its nose and its eyes as dark as the night. The bone spurs on its body were like deadly armor and a deadly weapon, protecting it. When the spiritual energy touched the bone spurs surrounded by black air, it would be corroded and disintegrated instantly. Ordinary spiritual energy could no longer stop it. This thing actually allowed it to merge with the dark attribute. The dark attribute suppresses us. My spiritual energy was melted by it before I even got close to it, and I couldn't cause any harm to it at all. The soldiers instantly fell into a passive state. The powerful corrosiveness of the dark attribute was equivalent to confiscating their weapons. Without weapons, the only thing they could do to stop the vicious dog was their own flesh. In an instant, the vicious dog suddenly moved. Its hooves were raised high, and the bone spurs instantly pierced out, attacking Wang Liang, who was closest to it. It was a bone spur soaked in dark attribute venom. Wang Liang's pupils reflected the venom dripping from the bone spur. The venom was as black as ink and contained a strong dark attribute. If it touched, the whole body would be corroded, and not even the bones would be left. Fang Yi, who was standing by, saw this scene, frowned slightly, and thunder was condensed in his palm. Once Wang Liang was about to get into trouble, he would take action immediately. Fortunately, the next moment, Wang Liang quickly avoided it with a terrifying reaction speed. The bone spur did not pierce him, but pierced into a nearby stone, and the stone was instantly melted into a pool of liquid. Wang Liang! Chu Lan screamed loudly, and when he saw him dodge, he breathed a sigh of relief. I was almost killed in seconds. Wang Liang wiped his sweat, his heartbeat was like a drum. The huge amount of adrenaline secreted by the reaction in that instant allowed him to react successfully. Years of physical training saved his life at this moment. After escaping death, Wang Liang looked at the vicious dog, but his eyes became more solemn. Successfully evolved dark attribute and fire attribute vicious dog. The fire attribute alone was already very difficult for them, and now they have merged with the most difficult dark attribute and successfully evolved. Can they still stop it? Li Yu, Zhang Mi, you two retreat, all of you, retreat to a wide area, and use flexible movements to limit its bone spurs. Chu Lan ordered. Received. The two retreated together, and the formation changed instantly. Wang Liang and another person also changed their positions. Their entire team seemed to be one, moving on one side and moving on all sides, encircling the vicious dog from all directions. Ow ow ow! The vicious dog stepped on its sturdy limbs and roared in the direction of Chu Lan. It was not very intelligent, but it also understood that the woman in front of it was the most difficult one among all people. It kept stepping on its limbs, and its nose exhaled heavy air. Chu Lan needed to adjust its tactics immediately. The previous close combat was no longer advisable under the obstruction of the black fog. They could only use spiritual energy for long-distance harassment, but spiritual energy was also as fragile as a cicada's wing in front of the black fog. Before she could think of anything, the vicious dog had already moved first. It suddenly sprayed thick black fog all over its body, like miasma, rushing towards everyone. And it was like a mad dog, with scarlet eyes staring at the direction of the female police officer, panting fiercely. Not good. It's trying to force its way out. Chu Lan's pupils shrank suddenly. The large open space in the field of vision was corroded the moment it was stained with black fog, and a deep pit appeared underground. The vicious dog stepped on the pit with its sharp claws and rushed towards Chu Lan. Swish! The snow-white bone spur drew a parabola in the air. Every place where the bone spur passed would be corroded, leaving traces. In just a few breaths, the vicious dog was in front of Chu Lan. Chu Lan's face was pale. In the previous fierce battle, she had been fighting with the vicious dog for nearly an hour. The extreme operation of her mental and physical strength pushed her body to a critical value. But she couldn't retreat. This was the last line of defense in the 019 restricted area. Behind her was the outer perimeter of the restricted area. 019 restricted area, C-level mutation, evil dog has evolved successfully and is now changed to B-level. The battle plan has been updated. Chu Lan took a deep breath, and her words resounded throughout the restricted area. This order fell into the ears of all the soldiers behind her. All pioneers with a ghost axe of 1 star or above in the 019 restricted area, follow me to fight together. We must not let this B-level mutation leave the restricted area. Received. Received. A series of neat roars sounded, like thunder, echoing in the valley. This is a real army. After receiving the order, the soldiers quickly put down their own things and gathered behind Chu Lan at the fastest speed, one on the left and one on the right, filling the reserve position of the 5-man formation. This means that when the people in front leave the formation, they will immediately step forward to fill in. This tight encirclement of the evil dog will never collapse, because it is made up of the lives of the soldiers. As long as there is still one person who has not fallen, he will do his best to stop the evil dog. The last boundary between the 019 restricted area and the periphery is the lives of these pioneer soldiers. Fang Yi took in this scene from the side. In the eyes of these soldiers, he did not see the slightest intention of retreating. Never retreat. Facing this mutated B-level mutation, they were brave and fearless, as if they were actively welcoming their own death. Chu Lan stood in the middle of the formation. Like all the soldiers, her pupils were blazing, as if a golden blade was condensing in her eyes. That was a torch that was bound to perish with the enemy. If all of them could not keep this B-level mutation in the 019 restricted area, then they would be destroyed together with the 019 restricted area. Never let this B-level mutation leave the 019 restricted area. Get ready. Chu Lan opened her mouth, and the voice just came out. Suddenly, a strong wind brushed past her side. A figure they had never thought of rushed out faster than them. At the critical moment, a hand pressed down the vicious dog's head. It was a hand with thunder and lightning. The black shadow jumped out of the battle line, and the hem of his clothes fluttered like a battle flag in the wind. The moment the vicious dog was pressed down by him, purple arcs of lightning burst out from its head, and the roar of the thunder shook away the black fog. This supreme and evil dark attribute was easily penetrated by the lightning. He pressed down the vicious dog's head with one palm, and the lightning pierced through the black fog on its body, instantly shattering the black fog. The dark attribute that no one could get close to. The terrifying bone spurs. In front of him, it was as fragile as paper. In an instant, the vicious dog was bounced away. The scene was silent for a moment. The soldiers present had also seen great storms and waves, and they were all pioneers. At this moment, they actually felt a trembling feeling in their hearts. He forced back the vicious dog that the soldiers in the entire restricted area could not do anything with one hand. The vast lightning escaped, the thunder rolled, and in the blink of an eye, the sky was covered with dark clouds. Terrifying. What kind of monster is this? He slapped the B-level mutation away with one palm. Is this a human? Countless soldiers watched this scene in shock. They were not mistaken. Isn't this an ordinary person? He single-handedly picked up the B-level mutation that the superior could not solve. This. Many people were dumbfounded. Chu Lan was even more shocked. Fang Yi's figure was reflected in her trembling pupils. She still remembered this person, the young man who came in with Wang Liang just now. What a joke. This person is not an ordinary person, but a powerful pioneer. His appearance deceived everyone. He was wearing ordinary casual clothes, and there was no highlight among a group of soldiers, just like an ordinary person who had never seen the great changes in the world. Stand back a little, Fang Yi said. At this moment, he stepped on the boulder and overlooked the B-level mutation. The power of thunder gushed out in his palm. He was not very burly, but at this moment he looked like a king who controlled thunder and looked down at his subjects who knelt on the ground. His eyes were as calm as water, but the water was filled with thunder and lightning. In a moment, Chu Lan was also suppressed by His Majesty. Chu Lan was the chief of the entire 019 restricted area, but he was a tyrant who made thunder bow down to him. When all the soldiers reacted, they found that they had subconsciously stepped back. Is it a pioneer with high thunder attribute? Chu Lan whispered to herself. She could feel the strong restraint coming from the other party. He was really able to suppress herself. Not only the attribute, but also the strength. She herself was already at the Ghost Axe 4-star realm, but she could not sense the other party's realm strength, which meant that the other party's strength was above hers. So strong. Is this the suppression power of a pioneer with high attributes? I feel my body stiff. Under his attribute suppression, I can't move at all. Chu Lan looked at Fang Yi's figure, as if he saw a ray of light. And at this moment, Wang Liang was dumbfounded. He stayed where he was, staring blankly at the cold back. Am I dreaming? My childhood friend, my good brother who grew up with me, is actually a forerunner. And he is such an awesome and powerful forerunner. It was so explosive. He slapped the dog on the head with a palm, so cool. And beside him, his teammates looked at the vicious dog that was punched away from a distance and swallowed their saliva. My head is buzzing just by looking at it. Why does it feel that the thunder attribute is 10,000 times more terrifying than the dark attribute? I can still tolerate corrosion, but I can't stand this slap. The originally heroic atmosphere was suddenly dissolved under Fang Yi's palm. The mood of the soldiers became relaxed. They are no longer worried about the vicious dog escaping from the 019 restricted area. They even want to see it escape and then be severely punished by thunder. Dark attribute. Corrode everything. Everything is destroyed by the thunder. When Fang Yi's sight swept over, the desperate evil dog was panicked. In its eyes, the figure with a tyrannical and gloomy aura was reflected. The figure carried a majestic pressure, looking down on itself like the Lord of Destruction. The evil dog was blessed by the spiritual energy and evolved and mutated, and so were all the other pioneers present. But it could clearly sense that the man in front of it was different from everyone else. He had already reached the pinnacle of the spiritual energy revival. It was a superpower that it could not face. The evil dog trembled all over, tucked its tail, and actually felt afraid of the human in front of it. Swish! Fang Yi slowly drew out the knife from his waist. It was a slender tang sword, with red flame patterns imprinted on the blade, reflecting the skylight, so bright that it was dazzling. Fang Yi walked towards the evil dog, and the sound of his footsteps, neither hurried nor slow, made the atmosphere more and more tense. Are you going to make the final conclusion? Chu Lan stared at Fang Yi's footsteps. Fang Yi walked to the front of the evil dog, and he slowly raised the knife in his hand. Instantly, she felt an invisible air pressure rushing from Fang Yi's direction, which made her heart tremble and her breathing stopped. At the moment of the rush, Fang Yi's figure blurred. That was because of his incredible speed. He fell from midair. At that moment, the knife was invisible, only the dazzling lightning exploded in midair, like a real lightning. This knife went down, tough, murderous, with the majesty of a tyrant. The evil dog had no time to react at all. All he could see was the long knife above his head sweeping across an arc, and a purple lightning surging above his head. The next moment, the terrifying lightning tore open the sky, as if the god of thunder had descended, overlooking all living beings, which was shocking. That knife controlled the lightning. Boom! The terrible light suddenly bloomed away. The terrifying thunder rushed towards the vicious dog, and the ground was shaken open with several cracks. Is this the ultimate thunder attribute? Wang Liang was dumbfounded. The talented teammates behind him who were selected to form a team were also dumbfounded. They had already been very handsome with that palm just now, and they were almost idolized, but they didn't expect that this knife slash would be even more earth-shattering. The thunder knife came out. Puff! A powerful dual-attribute B-level mutant beast was actually shattered by thunder. That was a B-level mutant beast. The corpse exploded into countless pieces, floating down from midair and landing on the ground, with terrifying arcs of electricity on it. The soldiers around stood in place, unable to hide their shock in their eyes. What a simple knife. One knife blasted it down, and it was directly blown to pieces, without even giving it a chance to use a second knife. His strength. I'm afraid it is far superior to this B-level mutant beast. For a moment, everyone couldn't help but sigh. As soldiers, they thought they were already in good condition. They could take advantage of the army to stay in places with rich spiritual energy, accept spiritual energy into their bodies, and continue to practice. Now most of them have reached the level of 1 or 2 Ghost Axe stars. But before meeting Fang Yi, they really thought they would die together with this B-level mutation. After all, even the commander of the 4-star Ghost Axe could not do anything about the terrifying dark attribute, which shows how terrible this beast is. At this moment, looking at the corpse of the vicious dog that was easily killed by Fang Yi, they were stunned and felt unreal. B-level mutation, was it killed so easily? Even in Sha country, this strength can be called the top. And now, there is still nearly a year before the spiritual energy begins to revive. 1 year later, if the spiritual energy is completely revived, how terrifying will he evolve? In the valley, there was silence. Chu Lan looked at the figure who controlled the lightning. She thought she was already a strong man at the level of Ghost Axe 4 stars. But B-level mutations and Ghost Axe 5 stars were a headache, far from what she could solve, so she needed to pull all the soldiers together to stop the evil dog. But unexpectedly, the B-level evil dog that made them so excited was easily killed by the other party with just one knife. This person seems to be Wang Liang's friend, right? Chu Lan's eyes swept between Wang Liang and Fang Yi. It was really against the rules for Wang Liang to bring him in just now. If it wasn't for the emergency, he would have driven him out long ago. Now thinking back, it was fortunate that the situation was urgent. Otherwise, the 019 restricted area would be over. Speaking of Wang Liang, he looked burly and honest, but he was actually quite strong and had reached the level of Ghost Axe 2 stars. He was honest and hardworking. So this time, Chu Lan directly agreed to the leave. Unexpectedly, Wang Liang, this friend, has a lot of things. Ahem, Yizzy. A light cough interrupted Chu Lan's train of thought. It was Wang Liang. Wang Liang looked left and right, and ran to Fang Yi under the curious and surprised gazes of his teammates. Then, punched him on the shoulder. You're repaying kindness with enmity. I hit the dog and you hit me, right? Fang Yi smiled and put away the knife. You're still talking. You're hiding everything and not telling me. Wang Liang smiled bitterly. He thought that the information he had obtained with the support of the army would open the door to a new world for his best friend. Unexpectedly, this kid had already kicked the door to pieces, and even walked to the front, asking him from a distance why he hadn't caught up. The strength Fang Yi showed just now gave people the feeling of this. A powerful talent that can't be caught up even if you flatter. I'm really envious and jealous. However, as a brother, Wang Liang was really happy for Fang Yi. In this turbulent and unknown evolution, they have all boarded the big ship bound for the new world. I didn't expect you to be a pioneer. Wang Liang looked at the hand he showed just now. One palm, one knife. The thunder roared, and the god appeared. If the scene just now was filmed and posted online, it would definitely immediately top the top 3 short video popularity and ignite the hearts of countless young people. When did you awaken? It's been a while. You are pretending to be a master, right? Wait until I ask you how long it is a while, and then give me a casual one day, I won't be fooled. No more questions. Only acquaintances will chat like this. After Wang Liang said this, he really didn't ask any more questions. He came here just to care about Fang Yi and see if he was injured. As for other things, what strength, in his eyes, no matter whether Fang Yi is strong or weak, a high-level pioneer or an ordinary person, he is his best friend, and that's enough. In Fang Yi's eyes, it is the same. But, thank you for your help, my friend. A signature female voice sounded. Hearing this voice, Wang Liang's body obviously tensed up, and his eyes wandered between his childhood friend and his boss. You're welcome, I'm trying to save my friend. Fang Yi said this with a calm tone and expression. But no one would think he was pretending. Everyone knew the situation just now. Without his help, the casualties would definitely not be small. My name is Chu Lan, and I am currently in charge of guarding the 019 Forbidden Land. You saved the 019 Forbidden Land. Can you leave a contact number? I need to report truthfully. No problem. Fang Yi knew that the official process was very strict, so he left his mobile phone number. Chu Lan said some more words of gratitude to Fang Yi, all of which were very official gratitude. He did not ask Fang Yi's realm attributes, and it seemed that he had no intention of asking at all. After thanking him, Chu Lan turned around and asked Wang Liang to send him away. Wang Liang looked at Chu Lan a little confused. After sending Fang Yi away by car, Wang Liang ran all the way back to the Forbidden Land and went back to find Chu Lan. At this moment, Chu Lan was squatting beside the corpse of the vicious dog, examining the residual charge and flame traces on the ground. Sir, I don't understand. Yi Zi is so strong, not inferior to those specially invited pioneers. Why didn't you invite him to join the army just now? Wang Liang was straightforward. He never hid anything and asked directly when he had a question. In his opinion, Fang Yi's strength was not inferior to his own leader. The killing of the B-level mutation just now was enough to show that the world was changing frequently and the army needed manpower. It was reasonable to pull Yi Zi to join the group just now. Chu Lan stood up, patted the dust on his hands, and told others not to touch the charge when collecting the corpses. Then he turned his head and looked at Wang Liang. Do you think I should invite Fang Yi to join the army? Of course, he is a pioneer himself, and a place with rich spiritual energy is more suitable for him to practice. What's more, the salary and benefits of joining the military are not low, and he can get intelligence in the first time. Aren't those specially invited pioneers all agreed to join because of this? What Wang Liang said was the precedent of inviting non-military pioneers in the army. Before, there were few pioneers in the army, and the superiors invited several people to join the army, and the benefits were particularly high, which made many people envious. After listening, Chu Lan glanced at him. It seems that you have a good relationship with him. You came to me for this kind of thing. However, Wang Liang, you can see that your friend is not simple. The strength that Fang Yi has shown now is only one aspect, and Chu Lan pays more attention to his high-level thunder attribute, which is the nemesis of the dark attribute. Now that Sha State has frequent abnormalities and is suffering, it is conceivable that once this high-level thunder attribute pioneer appears, it will be snatched by various military departments. What's more terrifying is that she doesn't think this is all Fang Yi's strength. The strength he has shown may be just the tip of the iceberg, but it is enough for us to catch up. A pioneer who can reach this level so quickly shows that he has an unprecedented sense of smell, and he has luck, courage, and ability. Quote. The more Wang Liang listened, the more frightened he felt. From the mouth of the superior, he heard undisguised admiration. His childhood friend who he hadn't seen for many years was so mysterious. Wouldn't it be icing on the cake to recruit such a powerful person into the army? But Chu Lan's next sentence made him fall into deep thought. I think he may not be interested in my invitation. Chu Lan was talking about me, not the military. Chu Lan saw it more clearly than Wang Liang, and she knew the value of Fang Yi very well. One person can have such terrifying strength alone, and such a powerful thunder attribute. The military will definitely make an invitation, but the person who invites will not be Chu Lan. Yes, Chu Lan thinks that her position is too low, and she is not qualified to invite. Sir, you mean, you are not worthy? Wang Liang suddenly realized. Quote. Just knowing it is enough, why do you have to say it? Go and deal with the body of the vicious dog. The sun gradually sets, and the city gradually opens the curtain of nightlife. The street is crowded with fancy food stalls, students who just got out of school line up in long queues, and office workers carrying briefcases squeeze into the subway during the evening rush hour. A very daily atmosphere. Fang Yi carries a pancake, leisurely walks through the crowd, and returns to his apartment. My cousin went out. As soon as Fang Yi entered the door, he saw his cousin's pink bunny slippers at the door. He didn't think much, and carried the pancake into his room. He turned on the air conditioner and took a shower. Fang Yi sat on the sofa, eating a pancake, and began to think about what happened today. The world has changed drastically, but everywhere is so quiet and there is no unrest. It is indeed the result of official control behind the scenes. Places like the 019 restricted area, which are rich in spiritual energy, are estimated to have sent pioneer troops to station there. This has two advantages. On the one hand, it allows the pioneers of the military to practice in the most spiritual places, which can give priority to ensuring the combat effectiveness of the army. On the other hand, the army is equivalent to drawing a cordon between ordinary people and abnormalities, which is a kind of protection for ordinary people. After all, the richer the spiritual energy, the easier it is to give birth to abnormalities. The aroma of pancakes fills every corner of the room. The pancakes downstairs are very popular, and there is a long queue in front. The existence of the restricted area is really a great contribution to being able to continue to curse the boss in the morning and eat and drink at night during this special period. The authorities protected ordinary people with restricted areas while sending out signals that spiritual energy is about to recover. This two-pronged approach is the best way. After all, the establishment of restricted areas can buy ordinary people a lot of time to slowly adapt to the gradually boiling rhythm in warm water, so that they will not be destroyed and displaced by abnormalities. At present, the division of labor is very clear. The military plays the role of a night watchman, a sword in the shadows, and a strong shield for the country, while the Spiritual Chi Cultivation Association is responsible for checking for loopholes and cleaning up the fish that slip through the net in the city, and ensuring the current stable life of residents as much as possible. For this division of labor, Fang Yi thinks it is very reasonable. After eating the pancake, he took out his mobile phone and planned to look for the latest news about the great changes in the world. Now, scanning the news every day has become his habit. This is the fastest way to get information. As soon as the screen lit up, the phone vibrated wildly. Lao Wang. WTF WTF. You were really hiding deep, even cheating your brothers. I dare not think about what you dare to do in the future. Lao Wang. Where are the people? You strong men all read but don't reply. So arrogant. Old Wang. Brother, I feel like I have jumped from a groom to a royal relative. Do you know how many people came to me today to ask about you? There was also a female soldier who asked for your contact information. Don't worry, I rejected it for you. No one can disturb your practice. 99 plus messages, all sent by Wang Liang alone. Among the 99 messages, more than half were praising Fang Yi for how handsome his sword was today, and asked him to act in the Thunder God. A small part asked him where he bought the Tang sword, the pattern was nice, and gave him the link, and some chatty words. I have never seen this kid talk so much before. Fang Yi couldn't help but smile. This kid is so silly and cute. He actually sent his conversation with his superior Chu Lan intact, and told him to be careful. Old Wang. Brother, you are too strong. My superior said that he can't control you. I can't protect you. You have to be careful when you go out in the future. Looking at this, Fang Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. He was indeed very careful. Chu Lan was right. His thunder attribute had been completely exposed and attracted the attention of the military. Thunder pioneers are definitely a hot commodity in the eyes of the military. You know, the biggest problem facing Xiaoguo now is the threat of abnormalities to ordinary people. An abnormality, even the lowest level abnormality, is no different from putting a mouse in a granary as long as it is placed in the city. Facing abnormalities, ordinary people have absolutely no power to fight back. Even the rabbit that Fang Yi accidentally killed before, if it is allowed to roam in the apartment, it can easily kill everyone in the entire apartment. It can be said that the most difficult thing about the great changes in the world is the disaster brought by abnormalities. These abnormalities are very cunning and difficult to deal with. Even the army needs to spend a lot of effort to clean them up, and casualties are inevitable. At this time, Fang Yi's powerful thunder attribute with a crit is simply a highlight bug. It would be a ghost if the official did not pay attention. Fang Yi is not completely unaware of this. It is precisely because he considered that his exposure would definitely attract attention that Fang Yi deliberately used his right hand when killing the vicious dog, without exposing the Yang attribute of the Tang sword. The thunder attribute has been exposed, but the Yang attribute has not been exposed. This is my trump card. Fang Yi deliberately used the thunder attribute to kill the evil dog, deliberately exposing the existence of the thunder attribute. He knew very well that the thunder attribute he exposed in front of the army and his absolute restraint on abnormalities would definitely cause a huge wave in the country's top leaders. Thunder. This is an extremely violent, powerful, and tyrannical attribute. Because of the special nature of the thunder attribute, there are almost no people who dare to absorb the thunder attribute. Ordinary people would avoid the great changes in the world caused by the thunder and lightning attributes. Once they get close, they will be killed. Because of this, Fang Yi is extremely rare, and can even be said to be unique. The pioneer of the thunder attribute can have the greatest right to speak. This is Fang Yi's purpose. He needs resources to make himself stronger and stronger, and the fastest way to become stronger is to have the most advanced information channels, and the official information is the fastest and latest. However, What Chu Lan said still surprised him. Does she think she is not qualified to invite me? She has considered a lot. Fang Yi murmured in a low voice. He hadn't thought about whether Chu Lan was qualified, but he didn't have the idea of joining any organization at the moment. He didn't like the feeling of being restricted in his freedom. After thinking about it, he finished eating the pancake. Fang Yi stood up and stretched. I feel like I'm going to break through again after coming back from the restricted area. He felt the abundant spiritual energy flowing in his body, and there was a feeling that it was about to overflow. It was a familiar sign of an upcoming breakthrough. The restricted area was indeed a place with rich spiritual energy. Just staying there for a while, he already had this kind of satisfaction. Unfortunately, that's the territory of the army. Fang Yi murmured. He sat on the bed, crossed his legs, and his consciousness slowly sank into it. With the frequency of his breathing, the golden light around him gradually opened and closed. Ding! At the entrance of the supermarket, a beautiful figure walked slowly to the checkout counter with a plastic bag, and the red light reflected on her pretty face. I wonder if my cousin has come back. If he hasn't eaten, I can make him a midnight snack. Lin Yi was scanning the face of the customer at the self-service checkout counter to pay. She was holding 2 wonton noodles, which were her dinner today. If her cousin had eaten when he came back, the remaining portion could be put in the refrigerator and she would eat it as breakfast tomorrow. After paying the bill, Lin Yi stuffed the receipt into the plastic bag and walked to the door. The supermarket and the apartment building were only separated by a road, a 5-minute walk. Just as Lin Yi stepped out of the supermarket door, suddenly, a strong aura burst out from the tall building in front, lifting Lin Yi's forehead hair. She looked up. Under the dome, the residential building was calm. In the pupils, a projection of a divine axe that only the pioneers could see was reflected, majestic, rushing towards her like a storm. That is, the fluctuation of the star upgrade in the ghost axe realm. What a terrifying aura! A thought popped up in Lin Yi's mind. This thought is a bit weird. She is also in the ghost axe realm. There must be star suppression in the same realm, but it is definitely not so terrifying. The air trembled violently, and a depressing aura suddenly appeared between heaven and earth, as if a torrent rushed straight into her heart, making her a little unstable. The aura was fierce and extremely deep, like a huge mountain, descending under the dome. How many stars is he going to break through? 3 stars, 4 stars. Lin Yi looked up. The violent light emitted in front was trembling violently as the fluctuation of spiritual energy continued to increase. Malta continued to flow down from the divine axe, scorching and dazzling. Boom! Suddenly, the divine axe swung. 1, 2, 3. The terrible brilliance illuminated the world, the night sky was torn apart, and the powerful majesty permeated every inch. A dazzling beam of light burst out from the apartment, like a pillar of divine light piercing the sky. The beam of light contained endless energy and exuded a mysterious atmosphere. As the beam of light spread, the surrounding flowers, plants and trees were trembling slightly, as if paying tribute to this power. A breeze blew, carrying a faint floral scent, filling the air and interweaving with the spiritual fluctuations. The spiritual fluctuations became stronger and stronger, at least 5-star level. Lin Yi's eyes widened. In the building where my cousin lives, there is actually such a powerful pioneer hidden. This terrifying breakthrough breath is like the scorching sun in the sky, releasing thousands of miles of daylight, burning all living things, with a strong breath and instantly sharp. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be silent. The light became more and more dazzling, a terrifying power surged, and then gradually disappeared above the dark sky. As the breakthrough over, Lin Yi panted slightly, staring at this scene, and suddenly an indescribable awe and respect surged in her heart. The powerful pioneer is actually right beside me. The predecessor has walked at the forefront of the times, standing in front of most people, and is still diligent in cultivation. Compared with them, I am like a mayfly, how can I slack off? Thinking of this, Lin Yi suddenly became full of energy and decided to practice all night without sleep. There was a burst of hurried footsteps in the residential building, and then the door was opened with a click. Lin Yi hurried back to her cousin's house. As soon as she opened the door, she met her cousin's sight in the living room. Are you back? Yeah. Fang Yi, her cousin, was lazily lying on the sofa at the moment, holding a tablet in his hand, playing something. He seemed to be fascinated by it, and his whole body was about to poke into the screen. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi sighed. Cousin, your eyes are too close to the screen, it hurts your eyes. Thank you for reminding me, I'll use a bracket. Fang Yi sat up from the sofa, clacking on his slippers to find a bracket. Lin Yi looked at his back, pursed her lips, and was a little speechless. She had lived with this cousin for so long, and she had seen through his character and temperament. His cousin was well behaved and had no bad habits. The only problem was laziness. He was too lazy to go out, so he always stayed at home. His biggest hobby was to go downstairs to buy Coke. He was too lazy to socialize. He didn't even go to college when he was admitted. He would play games and watch TV when he was in a good mood. It's not impossible to stay at home. College and undergraduate degrees are not important in the future. But you can't be so decadent. The great changes in the world are quietly changing the world's pattern. The future world will be reshuffled. Those who stand at the top of the world are destined to be pioneers. We pioneers are busy all day long, looking for opportunities in the world, and pretending to be ordinary people. My cousin is an ordinary person, but his life is so leisurely. It's really. Lin Yi couldn't help shaking her head. A little envious. Cousin, I want to make wonton noodles. Do you want to eat it? Make me one too. Thank you, cousin. Lin Yi turned and went into the kitchen. Fang Yi sat on the sofa, holding the tablet on the bracket, and felt that his neck finally felt better. It seems that his cousin is still considerate. On the screen in front of him, a familiar news channel was playing. Fang Yi didn't play games just now, but was using the tablet to browse the news of the revival of the world. Unfortunately, after searching for a while, he found nothing. It seems that the world has been a little slack recently. Why hasn't it changed? Fang Yi scratched his head speechlessly. At this time, a new piece of news came into his eyes. Shock! An unknown fire suddenly appeared on the playground of Tsinghua and Peking University, hot. The news title included the landmark Tsinghua and Peking University. As a higher education institution that has attracted the attention of the Chinese people, it had previously had the North Gate incident and attracted a mysterious person who was said to be a soldier. As soon as this news appeared, it was immediately topped the hot search. Fang Yi immediately clicked in to check and found a secretly filmed video. I saw the blazing flames raging over the Tsinghua and Peking University campuses like a violent beast, illuminating the night sky red. The fire was fierce, the burning flames made crackling sounds, and thick smoke billowed, filling the entire campus. The firelight was reflected on the surrounding buildings, making the entire Tsinghua and Peking University campus as terrifying as hell. The tall buildings were looming in the sea of fire, making hoarse roars. As the raging flames danced, the trees were devoured, the flower beds were burned, and everything was reduced to ashes under the ravages of the fire. The police car roared in, and a well-trained team ran down from the car and quickly evacuated the students on the campus of Tsinghua and Peking University to a safe area. The video screen shook a few times and went black in less than 2 seconds. The video ended here, and the comment area was full of crazy discussions. What a big fire, what is burning? It feels like the whole playground is gone. Could it be that someone is cooking hot pot in the dormitory and burned the circuit? The small pot used in the dormitory should not be burned like this, and there are people in the dormitory at this time, and they can put out the fire in the first time. It feels more like it was caused by other reasons. Am I the only one who noticed the person getting off the police car? Isn't that an ordinary policeman? The momentum looks scary, like a special forces soldier, but is this kind of thing under the jurisdiction of special forces soldiers? Or is Tsinghua and Peking University noble, and there are special forces soldiers to rescue you when there is a fire? Smile. The comments began to argue about the identity of the person getting off the police car. Fang Yi directly closed the comment area, reopened the video, and watched it again. Well, before it was high temperature, this time it is a fire. Is it a yang attribute again? Chapter 41. The next morning, Fang Yi got up early, and after practicing the golden sun breathing method in the morning light, he took a deep breath and made a phone call. Fang Yi, Commander Chu, it's me. Fang Yi exchanged phone numbers with Chu Lan yesterday, and now he was calling Chu Lan. As a military man, Fang Yi wanted to learn more about the fire in Tsinghua and Peking University, so he had to go through her. After all, the place had been blocked by the military. You want to go to Tsinghua and Peking University? It's just right, I'm going there today. Chu Lan was definitely surprised to receive Fang Yi's call. Just yesterday, she suddenly received an order from above to go to the Tsinghua and Peking University campus. Chu Lan originally planned to leave after reading the news. After all, there are many students in Tsinghua and Peking University. If something goes wrong, they can't bear the consequences. In addition, Chu Lan has another military secret that she is more worried about. Nowadays, the movement of the great changes and revival of the world is becoming more and more frequent, and there is a trend that it can no longer be concealed. It is urgent to announce the great changes to ordinary people, but how to announce it and how to train pioneers after the announcement, all of which need to be carefully considered. The military is discussing with the country whether it can use college students as a starting point to let them understand the revival of spiritual energy and open up a pilot for pioneer training in universities across the country. The country means that the idea of this pilot can be implemented, but the more troublesome thing is the selection of pilot training instructors. Training instructors cannot come from the military. The military management process is not suitable for college students, let alone novice pioneers. Besides, it's okay to let the pioneers of the army to encircle and suppress anomalies, but forget about educating students. It seems that there are very few people to choose from. The spiritual association can draw a group of people to guide and teach. After all, they are responsible for management. However, the number of pioneers in the spiritual association is too small. The team of the spiritual association is already difficult to cover the anomalies in the city. There is no time and energy to allocate to the pilot. After all, we still have to absorb more powerful pioneers. They must have strength, time, and be willing to be the pilot instructor. Difficult. Chu Lan was originally worried about this candidate. Unexpectedly, a call from Fang Yi solved her urgent problem. Now, with Fang Yi, a top pioneer, the pilot project has a clear outline. It would be great if we could control the sky fire. Sky fire. Well, you will understand the details when you arrive at the scene and take a look at it yourself. Chu Lan and Fang Yi made an appointment to meet at the school gate. Tsinghua and Peking University campuses are only 2 hours away from Tai City where Fang Yi is located. The news has a great impact. At 10 a.m., a long queue had formed at the entrance of Tsinghua and Peking University campuses. Reporters and people who wanted to go in to find out what happened to the fire kept coming, but they were all stopped by security guards outside the door. When Fang Yi arrived, he saw a scene of being drowned by a sea of people. So many people. Fang Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. At this time, a tall and beautiful figure walked out of the crowd, tearing a hole in the sea of people. Even the reporters carrying long guns and short guns couldn't help but look sideways and stare at this figure. Chu Lan. Fang Yi looked at the person who came. Chu Lan nodded slightly at him. She was wearing a simple casual dress today, with long legs and a slim waist. She had a very hot figure. Her face without makeup was beautiful, and her short hair was casually draped over her shoulders. The most eye-catching thing was her sharp temperament. The confidence and domineering in her every move instantly killed everyone present. I'm not late, am I? How long have you been here? I just arrived too. Fang Yi shook his head. That's good, let's go in first. Fang Yi and Chu Lan stepped into the Tsinghua and Peking University campus side by side, and the gate opened and closed, blocking the doubts of the people behind them. The people outside were dumbfounded. Why were we locked outside, and they went in as soon as they came? Chu Lan did not wear a military uniform today. Her casual clothes made her waist and legs look thin and long, and she looked very elegant. You are curious why I am not wearing a military uniform, right? Chu Lan looked at Fang Yi and shrugged. Yesterday's sky fire came too suddenly, and many students were quite frightened. Wearing a military uniform at this time will easily stimulate these students. I see. The two walked through the path at the school gate and came to the playground where the fire had broken out. Even though he had seen the video yesterday, Fang Yi still frowned slightly when he saw the playground after it was burned. The playground was once a place where students laughed and talked, but now it was burned into a mess by the sky fire. The charred marks were deeply engraved on the ground, like a ferocious fire dragon leaving traces of dancing wildly here. Scattered all over the playground were charred wood blocks and black ash, some of which were still emitting curling smoke and filled with a pungent smell of burning. Even the lawn next to it was not spared. The green shade was now burned yellow and scorched, with charred fragments and broken branches scattered. The playground facilities that were originally neatly arranged are now in pieces. The basketball stand twisted and fell to the ground, the white line on the runway was blurred by the fire, and the basket was burned and turned into a twisted iron block. A breeze blew, raising dust and burnt odor, which filled the entire playground. Burning like this. Is it a skyfire? Well, it is said that there was no sign. The fire broke out suddenly. Fortunately, it was night, and the curfew had passed, and there was no one on the playground, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Chu Lan looked at this scene, and his brows were also deeply frowned. Fang Yi, I'm going to the principal's office. Do you want to wait for me here or go together? You go, I'll be here. Chu Lan nodded and left the playground in a swift and decisive manner. After she left, Fang Yi cast his eyes on the ruins of the playground in front of him, which was ravaged by the skyfire. The frequent occurrence of great changes in the world and the city is indeed very troublesome. Although news can be released to explain, the casualties caused are inevitable. At this point, the country should make some moves. Fang Yi. Just as Fang Yi was immersed in thinking, a female voice interrupted his train of thought. Turning around, Fang Yi saw a familiar stranger. Chu Qingli. Why are you here? Chu Qingli was stunned. She and her roommate just passed by the playground after class and saw a familiar figure from a distance. She thought she had seen it wrong, so she walked over to find out that it was real. Fang Yi, her ex-boyfriend. Fang Yi turned his head to look at her and nodded slightly as a greeting. Seeing Fang Yi so calm and even a little indifferent, Chu Qingli felt depressed and had an indescribable sense of strangeness. Fang Yi, is this your ex-boyfriend? The roommate took Chu Qingli's arm and looked at the young man in front of her curiously, and couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Chu Qingli's excellence needs no further explanation. Academic master, cold, white, rich and beautiful. A hexagonal beauty who is far above average in all aspects. Not only does she have a superior appearance and figure, but she is also far ahead in learning. She has tortured the geniuses of the same age from Tsinghua and Peking University to doubt their lives. What's more rare is that her family is well off, but she is not a spoiled person. She is a little cold, but she is still very fond of her roommates. When they heard that such a gifted girl had a boyfriend in high school, their roommate's first reaction was, wow, who is so lucky? But after hearing that the boyfriend was admitted to a junior college, they could only sigh. The gap between Tsinghua University and Peking University and junior college is really too big. Their future is destined to be two parallel lines that do not intersect. Unfortunately, this beautiful and innocent first love in high school is destined to have no result. Roommate Wang Lu sighed and looked at Fang Yi. Brother, I know that you may still be a little attached to Chu Qingli, but the reality is the gap in front of you. Wang Lu's voice fell. The air fell into a strange silence. Is it Chu Qingli? What are the two of them doing there? I don't know, there's another boy, is he the boyfriend of one of them? It can't be Chu Qingli's, no wonder she ignores the senior who is trying to please her. I haven't seen the boyfriend, is he not from our school? Classmates passed by and talked about it. On the first day of Chu Qingli's enrollment, she was the class flower in everyone's mind, and even attracted suitors from other departments and outside the school. If there was a school flower selection, she would be either the first or the top 3. Wang Lu heard this and looked at Fang Yi again. She sighed softly. Although first love is beautiful, the gap between the two of them now is something that Fang Yi cannot make up for even if he appears in Tsinghua and Peking University. Chu Qingli bit her lip and wanted to say something, but in the end she said nothing. Although Wang Lu's words were a bit straightforward, they were not wrong. She and Fang Yi were already people from two different worlds, and there was no possibility of them meeting each other anyway. Receiving the sighs and the regretful looks from the two people, Fang Yi looked puzzled. Attachment, ex-girlfriend. Fang Yi, is this your friend? A doubtful voice sounded, instantly attracting everyone's attention. A woman with a gorgeous face and a hot body appeared in the center of the field of vision, with deep eyes and slender legs that could not be looked away. This person is not only beautiful in appearance, but also has a strong aura. She has a rare iron-blooded heroic spirit, and she seems to have murderous aura when she walks. Suddenly seeing a top beauty whose figure and appearance are not inferior to Chu Qingli walking towards this side, everyone was shocked. High school classmates, not friends. Fang Yi said lightly. So they are just classmates. Chu Lan heard the words, glanced at the two female classmates casually and looked away. She walked straight through the two people, walked to Fang Yi, and lowered her voice. I just had a chat with the principal. The skyfire is more serious than we thought. It's hard to explain it in a short time. We need to go to the place where the fire started. You are the special consultant of the military, so you have to go. It's serious. Fang Yi's face became serious. The great changes in the world are an inevitable natural disaster for ordinary people. It is neither predictable nor avoidable. This time it just landed in an empty playground and made such a commotion. What if it landed in a residential area next time? Or it landed directly in the teaching building? Chu Lan can understand the concerns of the principal of Tsinghua and Peking University. Just about to say something. Suddenly, a figure came from behind. Commander Chu. Principal. Many students around recognized this figure. The principal is usually busy with all kinds of affairs, and he is always around. Even the vice principal finds it difficult to see him once, not to mention ordinary students like them. Many students have only seen him from a distance at the entrance ceremony. At this moment, the principal in a suit actually walked over quickly with a smile on his usually serious face. In the eyes of everyone's horror, he shook hands with Fang Yi. Hello, Mr. Fang Yi. Hello. The principal shook his hand and said slowly, I'll leave the matter of the playground to you. I've been very worried about this matter recently. I'm afraid that the students will be hurt by the fire. It's great that you can come to solve it. This. Chu Qingli and Wang Lu looked at each other, feeling that their CPUs were about to burn. The students and teachers around also looked over in surprise. A president of a top university who is over 50 years old showed respect to an 18-year-old boy. This scene was too shocking, and people couldn't help but wonder who this person was. How could the presidents of Tsinghua and Peking University treat him like this? Fang Yi said in a deep voice, the president is polite, please take me there. After that, he exchanged glances with Chu Lan, and Chu Lan nodded. The three of them were about to leave immediately. Chu Qingli watched this scene from the side, and a strong sense of frustration arose in his heart. The woman who looked no less beautiful than himself had an inviolable aura, which was completely different from his immature self. More importantly, she never looked at him from beginning to end. This feeling was like two people of completely different classes, a kind of disdainful disregard. Chu Qingli glanced at Fang Yi again. And Fang Yi. Fang Yi's gaze did not linger on her. He left with Principal Chu Lan without even looking at her, leaving behind a group of stunned students, confused on the spot. Along the way, the principal was telling about the recent situation of Tsinghua and Peking University. Since the golden sun descended on the gate of Tsinghua and Peking University that day and dissipated a few days later, I thought the situation was almost over. But I didn't expect that a few nights ago, flames suddenly fell from the sky, and the blazing flames seemed to be endless, floating in the sky for no reason. They came all the way to a playground where the sky fire fell, only to find that the situation here was more serious than outside. The flames burned wildly on the playground, making a roaring sound, as if an angry beast was roaring. The red flames were as hot as the sun, illuminating everything around. When the flames danced, it seemed that countless tongues of flames were licking the air, emitting a scorching breath, making people feel as if they were in purgatory. The sky fire devoured everything around it. The grass, basketball hoops and even the signs on the playground were reduced to ashes. Under the light of the fire, the air on the playground was filled with a burnt and scorching smell, and even passing by here could smell the choking burnt smell. Has this sky fire never stopped? Chu Lan asked. Yes, we have tried various methods, but the fire extinguisher is useless. Even if we call the fire department, we can't do anything about it. We can only block this playground and keep teachers and students away from here. The principal was very helpless. Fang Yi looked at the playground after hearing this. The blazing fire cast a distorted shadow, making the entire playground look distorted and weird. The sound of the burning flames was as deafening as a war drum. In this raging sea of fire, everything seemed so powerless and insignificant. In the face of the increasingly frequent phenomena of heaven and earth, ordinary people are indeed insignificant. If the situation was not so extreme, the military would not be in a hurry to set up a pioneer pilot in the university and actively cultivate a group of pioneers. Chu Lan looked at this scene and raised her wrist. There was always a silver bracelet on her wrist, which looked very special. When she put her hand close to the playground in front of her, the bracelet suddenly lit up and the numbers on it began to jump. 1, 2, 3. What is this? Testing equipment. Fang Yi looked at the bracelet and asked curiously. Outside the playground, the principal led the way in front, and Chu Lan followed behind, recording the values of the sky fire with a bracelet while explaining to Fang Yi. A basic anomaly testing instrument, you can understand it this way. This time the sky fire is the most fierce, exceeding the records of the previous few times. Compared with the previous ones, all indicators have increased. When the threshold exceeds 10, ordinary people will be blocked. Human life is very fragile. For them, an abnormality above 10 means unpredictable and dangerous natural disasters such as earthquakes and tsunamis. The silver bracelet on Chu Lan's wrist should be issued by the country, which can detect the abnormal threshold of spiritual energy concentration and the great changes of the world. At this time, as soon as he approached the playground, the abnormal threshold bar was rising wildly, directly rising to 11, and it was still fluctuating and rising. Boom! Before the voice fell, the basketball hoop in front of him once again ignited without fire, as if a transparent flame was thrown on it, and a raging fire snake rushed out, dyeing the sky a crimson. Chu Lan's pupils reflected the fluttering fire, and as the abnormal value continued to rise, her expression became more and more serious. It's okay if this sky fire is only in this playground. If we continue to leave it alone, once it spreads, it will be a big problem for the entire school and may even affect the city. It seems that the situation this time needs to be recorded and reported to the higher-ups, and then we can ask a more powerful pioneer to solve it. Chu Lan knew that the current situation was no longer something he could solve. The abnormalities caused by the great changes in the world must be blocked or sealed. Allowing it to spread in the academy will only cause irreversible consequences. At this moment, Fang Yi beside him suddenly stepped out and walked directly into the boiling sky fire. The principal next to him was horrified. He almost popped his eyes out. Fang Yi actually stepped directly into the sky fire, and the flying fire snakes directly swallowed his figure. The horror of this sky fire is far from being as simple as an ordinary fire. Fires also have different degrees. They have tested it before. The flames of this sky fire cannot be resisted even if the professional equipment of firefighters enters. The temperature of this fire has exceeded the scope of human understanding, so it is called sky fire. The principal looked at Chu Lan nervously. How did he get in? What should we do now? Chu Lan next to him was also a little surprised, but she was a pioneer after all, and she was not as panicked as ordinary people. Looking at Fang Yi's back, her eyes became solemn. In the sky fire, Fang Yi heard the sound of sparks breaking in his ears, and in front of him was a rolling heat wave that was sticking to his eyelids, and he couldn't even open his eyes. Fire and water are as thick and heavy, and they have strong isolation from the outside world. The yang attribute can resist thunder, and this sky fire can naturally block it. Fang Yi dared to walk in, naturally not without consideration. As a yang attribute, he did not melt instantly when he entered this sky fire, like ordinary people, but was like a fish in water. Strong fire attribute fluctuations detected. Ultimate computing power is starting. Writing successfully. You have obtained the fire attribute technique. 9 Dragon Sky Fire Sealing Technique. 9 Dragon Sky Fire. Eliminate evil and purify evil, seal all demons. The skills you wrote do not need to be learned, they have been unlocked. Extracting attributes. Template obtained. Endless wildfire. 1 minute later, Fang Yi came out. The two people outside felt that this minute was like a year. After waiting anxiously, they finally saw a figure slowly walking out of the raging fire. Fang Yi. Chu Lan took the lead and walked forward to check Fang Yi's body. The two watched him step out of the sea of fire, but he was intact, not even his clothes were damaged. It's amazing. The principal held his glasses and sighed. He entered the sea of fire and came out unscathed. The pioneers. Are they all monsters? I'm fine. Fang Yi shook his head slightly and pointed at the sky fire. Can we solve this sky fire today? Ah. Chu Lan was stunned for a moment. She didn't have the ability to solve this sky fire. She just came to test it, send the data back, and then ask the military to solve it. Hearing this, she looked at Fang Yi deeply and asked, can you solve it? Fang Yi nodded slightly. He closed his eyes gently, gathered the spiritual power in his body, and began to activate the 9-dragon sky fire sealing technique. Boom, a blazing fire ring slowly rose from the center of the ground. The fire ring as thick as an arm seemed to break with a slight bend, but there was a sense of shackles that could not be broken. Hundreds of black chains were wrapped around the fire ring, each of which was surging with a hot breath. This breath was somewhat similar to the sky fire, but it was much heavier and deeper than the sky fire. That was the higher level of 9 dragons sky fire. The fire ring emitted a powerful sealing aura. Seeing this, Chu Lan's eyes lit up. She had seen the military's senior pioneers seal the forbidden areas before. Forbidden Area 019 was one of them. The operation of that person was different from Fang Yi, but the sealing aura was extremely similar. Compared with the blazing sky fire, the fire ring looked much more fragile. It seemed that it could be extinguished with a light breath, but it was such a thin fire ring that surrounded the flame and trapped it. Yes, where the fire ring was, the flame was like being blocked by a layer of transparent fireproof glass, and no heat came out at all. A cluster of flames lit up in Fang Yi's eyes. He raised his hand slightly, put his 2 fingers together, and made a downward gesture. The principal was very nervous on the side. The next moment he felt a wave of heat receding. Before, when he approached the sky fire, he would feel a wave of heat, as if being whipped on the cheek by the flame, but now, the overheated breath subsided. Clang! A sound similar to a lock sounded. The principal's pupils suddenly shrank. What did he see? He saw the sky fire trapped by the fire ring suddenly all flowed into a basketball hoop next to it. The fire gradually became smaller and smaller, and finally turned into a little spark of fire, hanging in the basketball hoop. That scene was really incredible. I will temporarily seal the sky fire here. Don't unseal the playground, and don't let anyone get close to here. This will at least stop the spread of the sky fire. The sky fire that burned the entire playground was now suddenly hid and sealed in a small basketball hoop. The flames rushed around like a trapped beast, but they could not break through the suppression of the fire ring anyway. I understand. This playground will not be unsealed. Anyway, there is more than one playground in the school. The principal agreed excitedly. His eyes have not left the basketball hoop that sealed the sky fire. As an ordinary person who believes in science and is highly educated, he has witnessed the process of sealing the sky fire with his own eyes. This is undoubtedly a powerful impact on the worldview. I have long heard that the pioneers are all powerful, and now I finally see it with my own eyes. Fang Yi muttered softly when he heard this. Tsinghua and Peking University are so arrogant, there are 7 or 8 of them on the playground. Chu Lan next to him had a complicated expression. The focus of the big guys is really different from ours. Chu Lan and Fang Yi sat side by side in a restaurant outside Tsinghua and Peking University. There were fragrant stir-fried dishes in front of them, and Chu Lan's eyes were always searching Fang Yi's face, without stopping. The seal that Fang Yi had just performed was really shocking. She knew Fang Yi was very strong, but she didn't expect him to be so strong. Sealing the sky fire, even the high-star pioneers of the military might not be able to do it. Fang Yi, you hid it really well. Fang Yi scratched his head. Chu Lan said again. Forget it, it's normal for pioneers to have secrets. Your talent is too strong. I didn't misjudge you. As expected, with my identity, I am not qualified to invite you. If you join the military in the future, we will be half acquaintances. At that time, more friends will open up more paths. Soldiers are different from other professions. In this time of great changes in the world, there are countless dangerous things that may happen at any time every day. People may die every day. More friends are always good. I will upload today's Skyfire report and the seal together. Someone will definitely come to you when the time comes. The military is also very competitive now. All the forbidden areas are scrambling for people. If you want to go in and you are unsure, I don't mind giving you some advice. Fang Yi nodded and thanked her for her kindness. After dinner, Chu Lan left in a hurry. Soon, Fang Yi also got on the train back to the city. Wang Liang's message came from the phone. Old Wang, I heard that you and Boss Chu went to Tsinghua University together. And you became a specially invited outstanding talent. Tell me what happened next time we drink. Fang Yi didn't reply. He had to rush back immediately to incorporate the newly obtained template into the Tang Dao. Endless Wildfire, I know it's a perfect match with my red fire sword technique. The more templates that can add icing on the cake, the better. Fire is called Yanshang. The fire attribute is bright and powerful. It can kill evil. It is very useful in times of crisis and against mysterious anomalies. With the red fire sword technique, I can defeat all large-scale reproductive anomalies with one sword. Fang Yi was looking forward to it. Back to the familiar forest, he took out the Tang sword. Do you want to implant endless wildfire into this thing? Yes. In an instant, a fierce light poured into the narrow and long Tang sword. In an instant, a blazing fire color bloomed on the Tang sword, bright and wild. The template of endless wildfire flowed into the Tang sword, and the original flame pattern on the Tang sword seemed to be ignited, opening and closing like breathing. Endless wildfire sounds like a very long-lasting ability. Does this endless fire mean that this flame will burn like the sky fire? Fang Yi thought of the sky fire he saw on the playground of Tsinghua University and Peking University today. The flames of the sky fire will never go out. The Tang sword in his hand trembled, the flame lines opened and closed more frequently, and the heat emitted from the sword was extremely huge. The road under his feet was cracked, and the leaves around him were curled. I wonder what the effect of the endless wildfire combined with the red fire sword technique will be. Fang Yi murmured, and the Tang sword in his hand gently drew an arc. A flash of fire suddenly appeared, making a crackling sound in the air. It sounded like a firecracker, but the lethality was extremely amazing. The temperature of the sword was too high, even the trees far away felt this strong heat. The next second, the trees next to him began to burn. The fire grew bigger and bigger, spreading rapidly in the forest. Family, I'm not a liar. I'm really a lucky A. I've been smooth sailing since I was a child and never suffered any hardship. Although it's my first day on the air, the materials will come to me on their own initiative. Do you understand? A female anchor was holding up her phone and broadcasting live outside the forest. Fishing. Stop talking nonsense. If you have the ability, just go to the north gate of Tsinghua University and Peking University to record the hottest high temperature recently. I'll send a rocket. Nothing else is interesting. 2G network, upstairs. The high temperature was a few days ago. Now the hottest thing is the sky fire on the playground. Didn't you see the video? The video is so scary. However, Tsinghua University and Peking University have been blocked by the military. If the anchor can really take pictures of the sky fire, I will live broadcast handstand eating shit. Zhang Ya looked at the number of views that kept dropping, a little anxious. Oh, it's not that I don't want to take pictures of the sky fire in Tsinghua University and Peking University, but this mysterious celestial phenomenon is not only in Tsinghua University and Peking University. Maybe we will suddenly have it someday. Huh. As soon as she finished speaking, the live broadcast room was full of question marks. Zhang Ya was a little puzzled. What did she say just now that hit the traffic password again? What you say is true. I'm so angry. Anchor, look behind you. Fire, 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 fire. Such a big fire. Zhang Ya looked at the barrage in confusion and turned her head away. The next second, she was stunned. In the forest behind her, a fire was burning the sky, and a column of fire rushed straight into the sky, as if it was going to swallow the whole sky. The fire was fierce, like a rampaging fire beast. For a while, the popularity of the live broadcast room soared. Zhang Ya adjusted the angle of her phone in surprise and aimed the screen at the fire in the forest. There was really a sky-high fire in the forest. This overwhelming wealth was finally knocked on her head. Sky-high fire. It's definitely sky-high fire. Only sky-high fire can do this. Do you think ordinary fire can have such an explosive effect? It's just like special effects. The fire is almost as big as a small sun. The flames are ferocious and cover the sky. It's so exciting. So scary. Is it really just a random shot? It's too coincidental. Could it be a small video made by the anchor himself? Times have changed, brother. Now this kind of heaven and earth phenomenon is everywhere. The things you saw in the special effects before are now real. If you don't believe it, go to the anchor's place to see it yourself. This live broadcast is still much more shocking than the video. The video attracted many people to watch at once. They turned on the recording button and started recording. This is the first time I've seen skyfire, it's so terrifying. Wait a minute, do you see a person in that flame? Anchor, zoom in a little bit. Zhang Ya noticed this comment and immediately moved the camera closer to the forest. The forest was burning with a raging fire, and the scorching temperature made the air a little distorted. In the blurred picture, a figure stood in it. It was a back figure, holding a long knife in his hand, and the blade was burning with flames. Oh my, there really is a person. Why is that person standing in the fire? The blazing fire did not shake his body at all. Instead, he stood in it like a king who controls the fire. It's incredible. Oh my God, I thought I was dazzled just now, but now I am sure that I saw it. I saw him cut out the fire with one knife. This is not the fire from the sky. This continuous sea of fire came from his knife, and he cut it out with one knife. The blade of the knife was blazing, and I saw it too. He cut out the fire from the sky with one knife just now. It was just like the fire in the playground video of Tsinghua University and Peking University. No, it was more dazzling and more amazing than that. This live video brought a huge shock to the entire city. Heavenly Fire Knife. The person who cut out the flame forest. This title quickly became a hot search. Countless people clicked it. The picture was blurry, with only a short clip. A figure with his back to the camera, holding a tang sword, cut out a hot flame with one knife, and a terrifying spark burst out. The flame rushed into the sky, burning the entire sky into a real fire cloud. The scene was extremely shocking. There is fire on the knife. How did you do it? Can the special effects be so realistic? Oh my God, can this be fake? This is a live screen recording, brother. Listen to the scream of the anchor, it almost pierced my eardrums, and then look at the fire burning towards the forest. Can such a big fire be photoshopped? It is definitely real. To be honest, I have been speculating since the frequent appearance of strange phenomena in the sky and earth before. Has the times changed? Are there really practitioners in this world? I think this person looks like him. That fire is definitely not something that special effects can make. His knife is so powerful that it cuts open the door to my new world. The sparrow eats the cricket, it explodes. His flames give me the feeling of that sky fire, such a strong oppressive force. Countless related videos went viral on the internet, causing quite a stir. The next day, Zhang Ya opened the live broadcast again. Compared with yesterday's low single-digit number of views, today's number of views has 4 more zeros. As soon as the broadcast started, it was pushed to the top of the hot list, which made the little transparent female anchor flattered. The audience inside, without exception, were all attracted by the figure in the forest. Did the anchor see it clearly yesterday? What happened in the forest? Is there really someone in it? Was the fire really cut out by a person swinging a knife? That's too cool. I thought it was a clip of a real-life special drama when I watched the video. I didn't expect that reality is more real than movies. The live broadcast room became popular all of a sudden. Countless people came for the figure who slashed the fire with a knife yesterday. Zhang Ya was of course going to take on this overwhelming wealth. In her mind, she frantically responded to the figure she had caught a glimpse of, racking her brains to tell everything she saw. The camera lens of the mobile phone is not clear enough, and the distance was too far. In fact, the pictures taken are not particularly real. If you want to say real, it is not as shocking as what I saw directly at the scene. I saw the knife-wielding man you are talking about. Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. The flame came from the knife in his hand. It gave me the feeling of a spring sword. It was very handsome. When the knife was cut, the flame sprayed out like rain. It was much more shocking than the playground of Tsinghua University and Peking University. What does he look like? Of course I saw his appearance, but I can't tell you directly. If you want to know, send a rocket to see your intention. The voice stopped here. Then, the screen of the live broadcast room went black. The live broadcast you are watching has ended. Quote ? Why did it stop at the key point? Equipment problem. It shouldn't be. Is it blocked? Zhang Ya was also confused. She just found out from the backstage that her live broadcast room was suddenly blocked. No matter what, it couldn't be unblocked, as if it was affected by some mysterious power. After a while, several people in uniforms appeared outside Zhang Ya's door, including a policeman. They showed their ID and asked her to go through. Zhang Ya got into the police car and was taken away in a daze. The whole process took less than 10 minutes. After being taken to the police station, Zhang Ya was taken directly to the room for interrogation. A man with a strong aura and a serious face asked her to tell the details of what she saw in the forest yesterday. Once it is found that there is concealment or fabrication, it is illegal. Han Li was wearing a uniform and looked very majestic. Okay. Zhang Ya encountered such a big battle for the first time. She was panicked and naturally explained everything. That person should be very young. Face. I didn't see his face clearly at all. The content in the live broadcast room was all nonsense, but from his figure, I can feel that he is not very old. Maybe he graduated from high school. Han Li was shocked when he heard this. High school student. As soon as the live broadcast fermented yesterday, he sent people to check the forest. At that time, no one had left. They checked the remaining traces of the flames on the ground, which were pure fire attributes. It is conceivable that the one who can cause such a powerful sky fire must be the strongest and purest fire attribute pioneer, and his strength must not be bad. For some reason, Han Li suddenly thought of the top of Yuhuang Mountain with thunder and rain that day. The same hand, the same brutality. The high-level thunder attribute pioneer on Yuhuang Mountain has not been found before, and another high-level fire attribute has appeared. When did Taishi suddenly appear so many high-level attribute pioneers? These two thunder attribute and fire attribute pioneers appeared near Taishi. Is it a coincidence? Is there such a coincidence in the world? If what this anchor said is true, and he is really so young, then this fire attribute pioneer is indeed amazingly talented and powerful. It seems that the situation in Taishi will be rewritten again. On the other side, Fang Yi was browsing the news at home, and suddenly he was hit by a melon. Tianwo Yidao appeared in the forest of Taishi. Who is he? I knew about this news yesterday. A female anchor went to live broadcast outdoors and accidentally filmed it. Friendly reminder, don't say anything more, the female anchor has been 404. Really, it's really blocked. I dare not say anything. I'm going to hide it. When Fang Yi saw the news, he was stunned. He didn't expect it to cause such a big commotion. Nickname YTUGG72. Boss, is that you in the video? Lao Li's message came suddenly. Fang Yi just remembered that he had never contacted them since he teamed up with them that day. At this moment, Lao Li felt very complicated. Since he heard about Fang Yi's Yidao, he didn't dare to contact this boss. He felt that there was a wall between them. But when he saw the video that was circulated, he couldn't sit still all of a sudden, although there was only a short and blurry video uploaded online. But the domineering feeling between the swings of the knife. Too familiar. After receiving Fang Yi's affirmation, Lao Li's expression became more intriguing. Looking at the movement of the fire that day, we know that the person who swung that knife must be strong, and the extreme fire attribute contained in it is even more majestic and magnificent. Was the knife that Fang Yi swung in the underground river before strong? It was very strong, so strong that it was scary, otherwise it would not have forced back another team of pioneers, but compared with this knife, it was completely incomparable, because this knife was more imposing, like a flame pressing down on the realm, completely not on the same level. Could it be that his strength has become stronger again? It's only been a few days. This cultivation speed is too terrifying. After Fang Yi replied, he put down his phone. He looked at the people coming and going outside the window and whispered to himself. Now, my strength should be able to occupy a place in this ever-changing era. And at this moment, the Spiritual Qi Cultivation Association. In the high-level meeting room, an old man looked solemn, frowned, and the atmosphere was heavy. Now, with the gradual recovery of spiritual energy, more and more anomalies appear in the city. These anomalies have undergone mutation and evolution, and are powerful. They are fatal threats to ordinary people and have seriously endangered the safety of the city. Moreover, the sources of dark attributes reported from various places have also increased significantly recently. I am afraid that the dark attribute will begin to invade the city. The president of the Spiritual Qi Cultivation Association has been worried about this matter recently. He sighed deeply, but there was nothing he could do. The Spiritual Qi Cultivation Association has tried its best. In this era of evolution, the dark attribute is revived. Anomalies are frequent. These are force majeure and cannot be stopped. Our Spiritual Qi Cultivation Association has also accumulated some energy, and many pioneers with good strength have joined us. But the number is still too small. Now, the crisis of the city is gradually approaching, and our pioneers are in short supply, but fortunately, there are still many powerful pioneers outside, still hidden in the city. Early in the morning, Fang Yi opened his eyes. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. It was just right to get up at this time since he didn't have to go to work or school. But, usually, my cousin would prepare breakfast and wake me up at this time. I didn't hear her calling me today. Is she sleeping in? Fang Yi was a little confused and got up to wash up. The heat of the Tianhuo Yidao incident went down very quickly. After only one day, there was no record of it on the entire internet. It was as if a big hand had wiped out all traces of everyone. It should be the upper level that took action. Not concealing it would lead to social unrest and various speculations. And the authorities have not yet planned to fully disclose the resurrection of spiritual energy, so it is reasonable to do so. Fang Yi walked out of the room and knocked on the door of the second bedroom. No one responded. He pushed it open and saw that it was empty. Sure enough, she went out. Fang Yi went out, made a breakfast to fill his stomach, and checked the news. 2 hours later, my cousin hadn't come back yet. Fang Yi was a little confused. He looked at the door and saw that the slippers were placed in a mess. I'm going out for something urgent. It's been so long, and you didn't send me a message. My cousin usually tells him in advance when she goes out to look for Tiandi Dabian, but this time she didn't say anything. Fang Yi had a feeling that something was wrong and dialed Lin Yi's number. The phone you dialed is out of service area. Not in service area. Suddenly, his face froze. Could it be that something happened? ... Gurgle. The dark fog enveloped the surroundings, like thick seawater, drowning people and making it impossible to breathe. No light could penetrate here. The cold and evil breath made Lin Yi shiver. How long has it been? Lin Yi looked pale and looked around. Behind her, the 81-year-old beautiful young woman shivered, with a bloodstain on her shoulder, obviously injured. They have been trapped here for 2 hours. Yi, I've implicated you. Lin Yi did not respond, still staring at the surroundings vigilantly. Black. Ultimate darkness. As far as the eye can see, there is only the oppressive black. The light of all things in the world has been swallowed up. There is no trace of light. Even seeing the abnormality has become a luxury. The spiritual energy around her body is dense, and the faint white halo isolates the black fog outside. The black fog is entangled and surging outside, like the tentacles of a monster hidden in the dark night, waiting for the moment when the prey is distracted. Seeing this scene, the beautiful young woman's eyes are full of guilt. It's all her fault that she fell into this situation today. This abnormal ghost was accidentally encountered by her, and then Lin Yi came to help. I thought it was just an ordinary abnormality, but I didn't expect that this abnormality's means and abilities were very cunning. It was she who implicated Yi. This abnormality didn't seem to intend to eat them, but to trap them here and refine them. For abnormalities, powerful pioneers are excellent nutrients. In the final analysis, we are still too weak. Lin Yi grabbed her hand tightly. Still can't do it. At this moment, Lin Yi's body suddenly shook, and rays of light flashed from her hands, rushing in one direction. Swish. The sound of spiritual energy penetrating the flesh was heard. Plop. A person with highly corrupted and festering skin was pierced by spiritual light. The numb bloody figure fell down with a bang. However, the expressions of the two people did not ease at all. Too many. Such scenes have happened countless times. These should be the people who were trapped and died here. Now they have become the abnormal walking corpses. It is playing with us and wants to assimilate us. Here, it seems to be invincible. Lin Yi whispered. As soon as the voice fell, water waves appeared around, and it seemed like thick blood through the darkness, making the surrounding atmosphere particularly cold. In this black fog, their spiritual energy was consumed crazily. Swish! A cold and evil look full of teasing suddenly broke through the darkness, like a crack in space. The pupils of the 81-year-old beautiful young woman suddenly shrank. It was so dark that she couldn't see anything, but she saw the disgusting bloody eyeballs, as if the abnormality had done it deliberately. It stood at the end of the darkness, despising the two people it regarded as prey, with a hint of anthropomorphic sarcasm on the corner of its mouth. The next moment, in the darkness that was deeper and more oppressive than ink, a strange scarlet was born, twisted, squirming, deformed, and exuding the stench of a corrupt corpse. They staggered towards here, as if endless. Die, thing. The beautiful young woman raised her knife and chopped it off. However, the eyes disappeared with a puff. The thick black fog completely engulfed them. That thing has lost patience, be careful. Lin Yi's smooth forehead gradually oozed a little cold sweat. There were more and more zombies around, cold and numb, with pale skin, as if they had been soaked in water for a long time. They suddenly started to move and ran wildly. Countless pairs of eyes bloomed in the blood drops. As they approached step by step, the black fog in the sky surged towards them, and the fragile barrier seemed to collapse in the next moment. Is she going to die? Lin Yi's face was full of despair. She knew that the road of evolution was full of dangers. She also wondered whether she would fall in a dark corner and no one would care about her. What would the era be like a year later? What role would the pioneers hiding in the earth play now? Young woman, we may fall in the last moment before dawn. We can't see the grandeur of the spiritual energy revival. She couldn't hear the beautiful young woman's voice. Probably, it has been swallowed by the darkness. It's over. With a click, the spiritual energy barrier made a crisp shattering sound. The black fog in front of her rushed towards Lin Yi like a hyena that saw fat meat. But at this moment, with a tear, thunder suddenly exploded in Lin Yi's ears, and she raised her eyes in surprise. Instantly, thunder and lightning swept across the sky, as if tearing through all the darkness. It was a thin figure, straight and tall, and it actually tore through the irresistible black fog. What came into view was a pair of eyes that were slightly helpless. He was like a god descending from heaven. The air was quiet. In the extremely oppressive darkness, a bright lightning suddenly appeared, coming from the outside world and penetrating the dark barrier. It turned out to be a palm covered with thunder. Tear. The palm exerted force, and the 5 fingers wrapped with thunder made a tearing state, and actually tore the darkness apart. The sun shone in. It was a backlit figure wearing ordinary casual clothes. The black fog that troubled them here and corroded and devoured them was like a fragile baby in the thunder, breaking at the touch. Lin Yi was stunned in place. The black fog corroded her mental power, and for a moment she couldn't tell whether it was reality or her own fantasy. When she was a girl, Lin Yi had actually imagined countless times that at this critical moment, someone would fall from the sky. But she never thought that the dream would come true one day. When she just experienced despair, she had imagined countless times in her heart that someone could come to save her. But unexpectedly, the person who saved her was her cousin. The cousin she regarded as mediocre. However, at this moment, Fang Yi tore the black fog apart with his bare hands, and the terrifying thunder made all the darkness here retreat as if it had encountered a nemesis. Suddenly, at this moment, the figure of the cousin was reflected in Lin Yi's sight, and he had already thrown away the word, mediocre. Fang Yi stretched out his hand. In an instant, the thunder gathered in the palm of his hand, and the bright lightning tore apart the terrifying black fog. Extremely fast and extremely violent. The black fog exploded and broke into countless pieces. The surrounding black fog shrank for a moment, as if it was very afraid of this person, and it actually quickly withdrew on its own initiative. The black fog retreated. Lin Yi's face was happy, but the next moment, her pupils suddenly shrank again. Roar! A cold and tragic howl broke out. I saw a ghostly white figure roaring out. Abnormal. It was a strange-looking anomaly that looked like a ghost. It was thin and small, floating in the black fog, with only one face exposed, which was frighteningly pale. Cousin, be careful, Lin Yi worriedly said. Fang Yi saw this, but his expression did not change. He directly pulled out the tang sword from his waist with one hand, and the tang sword came out of the sheath with a sharp and piercing sound. Then, Fang Yi swung the sword and slashed it out. The blade passed through the air, pulling out a raging fire dragon. The blazing and bright fire lit up the anomaly's vision. It was an extremely dazzling sword. The fire dragged out a long dragon, pointing directly at the center of the anomaly's eyebrows. The flame pattern on the blade opened and closed, like dragon scales, swallowing and spitting out fierce flames, and the flames broke through the black fog, making a squeaky sound. Roar! The fire dragon broke through the front line of the black fog like a broken bamboo. In front of the strongest flame, the black fog was like a fragile cicada wing. The black fog burned fiercely, and a ghost-like scream broke out, shrill and hoarse. This feeling was particularly terrifying. This terrifying scream filled the eardrums, making people feel as if they were in hell, witnessing the fire of hell burning the evil spirits, and the evil spirits burst out with terrifying screams. The fire not only burned the black fog. The ghosts behind the black fog were also chopped apart by this fierce knife. The eerie ghosts screamed and were buried in the continuous sea of fire, in the miserable screams. The black fog was burned, and the environment gradually collapsed, revealing the appearance of the streets outside in spots. Under the scorching sun, the world was restored to the way it was before entering the black fog. There were only 1 or 2 stray dogs rummaging through the trash cans beside the secluded streets. There was no black fog, no zombies, everything seemed like a dream, but the 2 people who had just come out of the illusion were still in shock and gasping for breath. Why are you making trouble so early in the morning? In the end, Fang Yi spoke to break the silence. It was almost dinner time and his stomach had begun to growl. Lin Yi seemed to have just come to her senses, and her beautiful eyes stared at her cousin in a daze. Doubts surged in her eyes, and she bit her lips lightly, but in the end she said nothing. It's you, the person near the vines that day, you saved us again. Zhao Meng's surprised scream exploded. The memories in her mind rolled over. That day, she was extremely desperate, and an invincible and domineering figure descended from the sky, just like now. You saved us again. She felt a little like crying with joy. This feeling of surviving a disaster was so cool. Lin Yi was very surprised to hear this. It was him. It turned out that the powerful fire-attributed pioneer who chopped the vines with a knife that day and saved our entire team was actually my mediocre cousin who was admitted to a junior college but stayed at home all day to play with his tablet. By the way, Yi, what did you call him before? Cousin. Is he your cousin? Zhao Meng grabbed Lin Yi's sleeve, his eyes full of questioning. Oh my god, didn't you say your cousin is mediocre? That terrifying thunderbolt, that knife that killed the abnormal sea of fire, the super boss who defeated Wenju Daoshan with one move, and also attracted the special attention of Sister Galan. You call this mediocre? Zhao Meng roared in his heart. Lin Yi was also confused. She clearly remembered. The knife that cut off the vines was powerful and bright, and that person was a powerful high-level fire attribute. But the thunderbolt that my brother just tore through the black fog. Isn't that thunder attribute? No, the knife that killed the abnormality seemed to be fire attribute. One thunder, one fire. And the powerful aura that far exceeded his own. Lin Yi's eyes gradually solidified. So, my cousin is not only a pioneer, but also a super genius with dual high-level attributes. Zhao Meng also grabbed Lin Yi's hand and shook it fiercely, his eyes gradually filled with questioning, as if you have such a high-quality brother and don't introduce him to me, are you a human being? Seeing that Lin Yi was about to be shaken into a spinning top. Seeing that the situation was not right, Fang Yi, as the elder brother, directly used the excuse of going home for dinner and took Lin Yi away. Back home. In the living room, Fang Yi and Lin Yi entered the house together and changed their shoes together, but did not return to their respective rooms as usual, but stood in the living room staring at each other. Why didn't you say it earlier? Lin Yi held it in for a long time, her face turned red, and she asked this question. Having stayed under the same roof for so long, Fang Yi knew Lin Yi's personality very well. This girl was not good at talking. This time, she was saved by a brother who came from heaven, and she must have a lot to say, but she only said this one sentence. You didn't ask. Fang Yi looked calm. Lin Yi was speechless. She had indeed never asked. On the first day she came, she naturally mistook her cousin as an ordinary person. Thinking of this, Lin Yi felt a warm feeling in her heart. My cousin should have always known that he was a pioneer and had been protecting me in secret, otherwise the whole team would have been destroyed in the last vine incident. She suddenly felt a sense of reliance in her heart. She was always alone on the road of evolution. Although she always acted strong, she was still afraid and hesitant in her heart. After all, for pioneers like them, the future was full of countless changes, and no one knew where they would fail, so they would always look for companions, gather companions, and walk together on this lonely road. After figuring this out, Lin Yi suddenly turned around. "Where are you going?" "Cooking." Fang Yi smiled. "I saved you, don't you thank me." Lin Yi paused. "I'll fry 2 more eggs for you at noon." Quote. Good guy, you are still a man of action. After dinner. Since the secret has been exposed, Fang Yi no longer avoids Lin Yi and goes back to his room to practice. Lin Yi looks at his back, dazed. My cousin is actually a pioneer, and he is also a Ghost Axe 5-star. Could it be that the breakthrough sign I saw there that day was him? If it is really him, then this talent is too terrifying. Among the people I know, only Sister Galan can slightly suppress him. But Lin Yi didn't think that Galan's talent could really crush her cousin. After all, Galan has a powerful background beyond their imagination, which is the result of resource accumulation, while her cousin relies entirely on himself. Ghost Axe 5-star. He is already in the top 10% of the Pioneer Combat Power Pyramid. With the terrifying high-level attribute blessing, Lin Yi feels that her cousin has a promising future and can reach a height that she cannot reach. If my cousin has better resources, it will definitely be more than this now. Lin Yi sighed, and at this moment, the mobile phone on the table kept vibrating, and it was the members of the martial arts pioneer team who were asking about the beautiful young woman. Online dating was cheated of 50 cents. Young woman, Yi, are you two okay? We just arrived at your location and found that you had left. Where are you now? After the team members arrived at the location, they found that the battle was over and only some traces of battle were left on the field, so they were very worried. After a long time, the beautiful young woman replied. 81-year-old beautiful young woman, don't worry, the matter has been resolved. I'm fine. I was just too tired just now, so I replied so late. As soon as this was said, the group was obviously relieved. However, on the other side, the private chat window of the beautiful young woman and Lin Yi still retained the conversation 10 minutes ago. 81-year-old beautiful young woman, Yi, do you want to tell them that your cousin saved us? Yi Feng Haju. Number. When Lin Yi saw this question, she made a decision as soon as she saw it. The current situation of the pioneers is that they are in a huge dark forest. They don't know each other's existence, let alone each other's strength. The world is changing, resources are limited, and limited means competition. In the face of the great changes in the world, others are hell, and the pioneers are natural enemies. Any existence that threatens oneself is allowed to be killed. This is the picture of the present and the future. Although my cousin did not ask to keep it secret, being too high profile is obviously not a good choice. Lin Yi thought of Fang Yi's strong strength. He could not keep it secret for long, and he did not intend to keep it secret. But it was natural to expose it later, and there was no need to emphasize it. So the beautiful young woman concealed Fang Yi's existence, and the members asked about it lightly. It's good that it's okay, it's good that it's okay. I said, Yi has gone, what are you still worried about? Yi is our genius girl. The group started chatting 99+ again. But soon, a message interrupted them. It was a task notification. Notification of the release of the Extremely Dark Zone task. Publisher. Galan. After seeing the publisher's ID clearly, it was like the lively sound was paused. Everyone stopped talking at the same time, and the air was quiet. Galan. This ID is the most powerful, mysterious and powerful person in the group. No one else. Although she basically never speaks in the group, once she speaks, it is definitely cleaner than banning all members, because she doesn't say a word of nonsense, and it is more concise and powerful than a military order. Galan. The darkest zone is very likely related to the dark attribute. Galan. Think about it carefully before you come back. After saying this, Galan dived again. The group was silent for a full minute. Yi Fenghaju. Got it, Sister Galan. Lin Yi looked at this name with a complicated mood. The last time Sister Galan appeared, it was to find the powerful pioneer who cut off the vines. But now, the person who was concerned by Sister Galan has transformed into her cousin. How to break the little pride in my heart. Danmo Wenju. The darkest zone. The place known as the boundary of the dark attribute. I heard that the dark attribute there is extremely powerful and has a wide range, almost corroding the entire land into a dark attribute restricted area. The pioneer team I know even has to avoid it when passing by. Online dating was cheated of 50 cents. Hiss, is it so scary? 82-year-old beautiful young woman. No one pays attention to the point. Sister Galan can even accept tasks related to the dark attribute. What is your identity? Online dating was cheated of 50 cents. Sister is very mysterious, don't ask too much. When these two people meet, the style of the painting will be deviated. Dan Mo Wenju looked at this message, but he had an ominous premonition in his heart. Dark attribute, until now, facing several anomalies, this attribute is also quite mysterious to the pioneers. They can only understand the characteristics of this attribute from the anomalies. Powerful, brutal, rampant, and the dark attribute will also control the mind of the creature, making the other party bloodthirsty and violent, tyrannical, and extremely terrifying. Dan Mo Wenzu. The darkest zone is very dangerous, and it is full of anomalies of dark attributes. Now the spiritual energy has not yet fully recovered. I thought I would face them later, but I didn't expect that Galan has already issued the task. What is coming has finally come. Dan Mo Wenzu. Everyone, the times have changed. Dan Mo Wenzu. I have a hunch that the time for the spiritual energy to recover is getting closer and closer. The future world is far more cruel than we imagined, and the dark attribute will be the biggest threat facing mankind. Anomalies of dark attributes are the most difficult and weird, and this type of mutant creatures are the most aggressive and have a natural hostility to humans. The several anomalies that have appeared before have also proved this. If the dark attribute is allowed to spread and infect the surrounding areas, it may infect more creatures and cause the birth of terrible anomalies. Therefore, it is necessary to solve and deal with them in advance. Dan Mo Wenzu. Recently, there are more and more anomalies in the city, and everyone is in danger. Dan Mo Wenzu. We must become stronger to stand firm in the torrent of the times. Come on. On the other side, the person with the ID of Jolin did not close the group chat immediately after posting the information, and for the first time, he looked at the group message. The subsequent group chat content and Dan Mo Wenju's words fell into her calm eyes one by one. After reading all this, she picked up her phone and typed a few lines. Jolin. Yes, Jolin. This mission is very dangerous, think twice before acting. Jolin. However, if there are reliable and powerful pioneers you can bring them along. Early morning. The sun shines through the curtains into the living room, casting a golden glow. Fang Yi takes a deep breath, and the golden sun breathing technique slowly ends. A scent drifts in from the door. My cousin is making breakfast again. I have to say, it's great to have a cousin who likes to cook for herself. Every day's breakfast is different. Fang Yi walks out the door and comes to the restaurant. Lin Yi is already sitting opposite her. Breakfast is steamed buns. When she takes a bite, the juice splashes. Cool. Fang Yi takes a bite of steamed buns and a bite of soy milk, and her stomach feels warm. Lin Yi sits opposite her, eating quietly, biting the steamed buns in small bites. When Fang Yi finishes a basket, she has just finished one. During this time, her beautiful eyes have been staring at Fang Yi, wanting to say something but stopping. Gurgle. Fang Yi takes a sip of soy milk and looks at her helplessly. Just say what you want to say. Why are you staring at me? Hearing this, Lin Yi's expressionless face actually showed a faint smile. Cousin, I have a mission here. I wonder if you are interested. It was issued by someone in my team. Have I seen it? Fang Yi thought of the faces he had seen before when he was in the air vines. Lin Yi shook her head. You haven't seen it. She is very mysterious. How mysterious? Very, very mysterious. Lin Yi's words made Fang Yi thoughtful. Even his cousin, a member of the same team, felt mysterious, so there must be an unspeakable background behind her. The mission she issued must also have a great background. What is the mission? Hearing this, Lin Yi put down the chopsticks in her hand and said seriously. Cousin, have you heard of the Dark Zone? The Dark Zone. Fang Yi really hadn't heard of it. According to the mission, it is a mysterious area shrouded in darkness. It is extremely dangerous inside, and the country has never explored it in depth. I heard that it is the cradle of abnormalities and the starting point of all abnormalities. Many abnormalities in our city now may have infiltrated from there. Lin Yi's tone was very solemn. This mission was indeed difficult. Danmo Wenju also mentioned that the dark attribute is the most troublesome attribute, and the darkest zone is the paradise of anomalies. In order to complete the task, a strong vanguard team must be formed. Ordinary pioneers can only drag the team down. So when Lin Yi heard Galan's request, she thought of her cousin at the first time. Her cousin is a 5-star ghost axe, with high attributes. Lin Yi knows his combat power very well. After listening to Lin Yi's description, Fang Yi's mind flashed with several anomalies he had seen before. The darkest zone, the place covered by the dark attribute. From the several anomalies I have come into contact with before, the dark attribute is indeed difficult to deal with, murderous, and full of hostility to humans. Is this the mutant characteristic of the dark attribute? Fang Yi remembered the rabbit he killed at the beginning. The rabbit was covered with blood when it appeared. It should have escaped after injuring people and fighting with people, showing its murderous nature. There are also the big snakes and small beasts that trap the spirit association in the abandoned factory on the rainy night. They are all conscious and can cooperate to create traps for siege and killing. Obviously, they are going to kill the pioneers. Cunning and fond of killing, these are the characteristics of the dark attribute. If they all ran out from the darkest zone, then, how terrifying is the darkest zone? And the most important point. The abnormalities are extremely cunning. They seem to be avoiding the military defense at the city border in a targeted manner. Although I don't know what method they used, the abnormalities in the city are now appearing more and more frequently, and it has reached a point where it is difficult to contain. So, it is urgent to go to the darkest zone. Lin Yi frowned. She could feel that this mission was extremely dangerous, far from their usual small fights. That was a place that even the country had no information about. It was full of abnormalities with dark attribute mutations. But in order to completely protect ordinary people, these pioneers had to go in. Okay, when are you going? I'll go with you. Fang Yi agreed without much thought. He had always been curious about the dark attribute, and it was just the right opportunity to take a look. Lin Yi nodded. Let's go now. The sun was high in the sky, illuminating every inch of the city. The cicadas were noisy, and the sunlight stretched everyone's shadow very long. Subway station. A man and a woman walked into the ticket gate. It was Fang Yi and Lin Yi. People were crowded. Lin Yi took a cup of milk tea at first, but as soon as she got on the subway, the milk tea was squeezed away, and I don't know which unlucky guy's clothes came into close contact with it. So many people. Fang Yi looked at the huge crowd and sighed. It's still a little before the peak time. Is it really so crowded? It's good to be able to get on the bus. Lin Yi's face was still expressionless. Her fingers tapped on the screen of her mobile phone. She should be contacting the group for news from the dark zone. By the way, the reward for this mission is 1 million per person. Hiss. 1 million. Fang Yi looked up. So much. For an ordinary citizen, 1 million can directly buy a house for retirement. What kind of sky-high reward is this? Lin Yi looked at Fang Yi's astonished eyes and curled her lips slightly, so Sister Galan is very mysterious. After the tasks she has done, the rewards are like flowing water. You can eat for a year by picking any one of them, provided that you are able to complete her tasks. Galan seems to be the ID of the mysterious person. Fang Yi couldn't help but have a better impression of the mysterious person. Nothing else, just because she was generous. If there is such a good thing in the future, please find me more often. Ding. Arrived at the station. Fang Yi and Lin Yi were originally standing there holding the handrail. As a result, 2 passengers happened to get off the bus in front of them, leaving 2 seats vacant, one for each of them. There were still 10 stops to the destination, and standing all the way there really made their legs sore. The brother and sister looked at each other and sat down tacitly. 10 stops, and another hour. Fortunately, there is a seat. Lin Yi looked at the map on her phone and sighed. The world has changed drastically, and the location is different every time. She can't avoid the fatigue of traveling every time she rushes there. What's more disgusting is that she is a little carsick, and every time she gets off the bus, she is half dead. Fang Yi also felt very uncomfortable sitting there. How can the seat on this bus compare to the lazy sofa at home? Thinking of the generous reward, he made up his mind. After this mission, let's buy a car when we go back, so that we don't have to squeeze on any bus or subway in the future. I agree. Lin Yi's beautiful eyes lit up. At this time, the car door closed. A new group of passengers came onto the subway. An old lady with a child struggled to get through the crowd, looking around. When she saw Fang Yi, her eyes suddenly lit up. "Young man, please give up your seat." Quote. The seat he had just occupied was ruthlessly occupied by the old lady before he could even sit down. Fang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In a private high-rise building that towers into the sky, standing in front of the desk is a silent girl with a delicate appearance and outstanding temperament. She seems to be surrounded by ice, and people dare not breathe heavily for fear of disturbing her. "Galan, can they do it?" A pioneer in uniform next to him frowned. "The darkest zone is dangerous. Once you enter, there will be a dark fog blockade. Our people can't get any information inside. This time, it is equivalent to moving forward in the dark." In response to him, there was silence. This question is too heavy. The country has never successfully extended its hand into the darkest zone. Previously, people were sent to try to collect information near the darkest zone, but they suffered heavy losses. Those people were eroded by the dark attribute and are still lying in a coma in the medical center. The degree of danger in the darkest zone is far beyond what the current pioneers can face. There is no doubt that this is an extremely dangerous mission. Moreover, even the professional team of the Spiritual Qi Cultivation Association was unable to get the things they wanted this time. Can these ordinary pioneers really do it? The pioneer spoke again, his tone becoming more and more uncertain. The Spiritual Association is a nationally certified pioneer. In terms of combat power, it is not as powerful as the army, but the teams formed complement each other. They are good at handling various abnormal tasks, and they can achieve unexpected results when facing such situations. The last time the Spiritual Association team entered the Dark Zone, code-named Sword Holder, was responsible for carrying out many sea-level abnormality removal tasks. The team members trusted each other and cooperated tacitly. Logically, they should have gained something. But even such a team returned from the Dark Zone, but still did not bring back any information, and 2 members were injured. Since then, the Dark Zone has been listed as an A-level zone, with the note, "Information cannot be extracted temporarily." Unknown dangers require brave people to open up with their lives. This is the other side of the world that other pioneers are completely unaware of. Hearing this, Galan looked up and looked out the window. A pool of dark clouds had accumulated outside the window at some point, weighing heavily on the head, making people inexplicably feel a kind of tragic grandeur of dark clouds pressing down on the city. After a moment, she spoke lightly. "We have no choice. Shah's top core combat power is our greatest reliance in negotiations with other countries before and after the revival of spiritual energy. Their existence is tantamount to a nuclear bomb. Just sitting there is a reassurance, and Shah has time to develop peacefully with other forces. But now, one of them is dying, and the lost tempering flower in the dark land must be used to save him. So, we must go to the Dark Zone this time." Galan's eyes showed determination. Seeing this, the pioneer next to him was stunned and whispered, "Understood." Galan didn't say anything else. She saw Yi Feng Haju in the group speak up and bring her cousin to join this operation. This team that entered the Dark Zone is gradually expanding. Wait for the pioneer next to him to leave the room. Galan's back paused slightly. She lowered her head and looked at the horrific injury of Huang Tian, shown in the information. A rare worry appeared in her eyes. "Uncle Wu is an elder who has watched me grow up since I was a child. Even if it's for this relationship, I must get the lost quenching flower." Metro station exit. The huge crowd poured out like a swarm of ants, pouring from one opening to another. Fang Yi and Lin Yi were squeezed out by the crowd. "Brother, buy a car, you must buy a car. This time I'll go to the 4S store and buy it directly." Fang Yi took a big breath of fresh air. The strong smell of sweat in the car mixed with the smell of cheap perfume almost marinated him. After becoming a pioneer, it was the first time that he disliked his sensitive sense of smell so much. "I support you." Lin Yi vomited before she could finish her words. After she held the trash can and vomited all over, Fang Yi handed her a bottle of water. You're pretty hardworking. You're still running around after vomiting like this. Lin Yi rinsed her mouth and drank water. Her small face, as white as paper, was bloodless on her lips. She looked like a patient who had just escaped from the hospital after having the tube removed. Even though she was like this, she still flipped through the map on her phone and showed Fang Yi the way. Let's go and meet up. The gathering place was in a wasteland. The dark zone itself was an extremely special space that required a specific method to enter, so they decided to meet up in the nearest wasteland. When Fang Yi and Lin Yi arrived, a small group of people were already standing here. A group of men and women stood on the open ground. There were a total of 5 people of different ages. Some looked like college students, while others looked to be in their 40s or 50s. Zhao Meng was the youngest one among them. She was only a little older than Lin Yi. She was just a sophomore this year. She was indeed the youngest, but she was beautiful and good at dressing, so she stood out in the crowd. At this moment, she was looking around. Where's Yi? Yi hasn't come yet. Strange, after you and Yi went through so much hardship together, you suddenly became extra attentive to her. Another girl chewed a lollipop and looked at Zhao Meng suspiciously. She is cheated of 50 cents in online dating, and she always wears a black eye mask on her left eye, revealing only one amber eye, which is rolling around and looks a bit cute. Your illusion, I have always cared about Yi. Zhao Meng defended. I don't believe it. Quote. The two were about to have a primary school quarrel. Suddenly, Zhao Meng saw a figure behind her from a distance, and her eyes lit up. Yi, here. Before Lu Jiahe could react, Zhao Meng in front of him had already rushed out in one step, and appeared in front of Lin Yi in the next second, at a speed that was outrageous. Yi, ahem, cousin. What a coincidence, you are here too. Zhao Meng rushed to Fang Yi, braked suddenly, and then lowered his head slightly, with a strange blush on his cheeks. Looks a little shy. Am I blind? Lu Jiahe rubbed his eyes, and when he looked again, they were still red. It seems that my other eye is also broken. Zhao Meng's cheeks were slightly red. She stood in front of Lin Yi and Fang Yi like a weight, with no intention of moving away. Seeing her so enthusiastic, Lin Yi was also a little surprised and took the initiative to greet her. Hello, beautiful young woman. Quote. Zhao Meng's mouth twitched when she heard this ID. Suddenly, she felt that it was quite cheap to be called out by someone with an ID she had casually created. Are you Yi's cousin? Lu Jiahe came up at some point and stared at Fang Yi with narrowed eyes. Yes, what's wrong? Fang Yi raised his eyebrows. Lu Jiahe shook his head. I always feel that this cousin looks a little familiar, as if I have seen him somewhere. She had seen Fang Yi's profile when she was in Vine before, and even became Fang Yi's fangirl for a while, but the situation that day was too dangerous. With a glimpse, Lu Jiahe really didn't think of connecting the hero of the colorful clouds with Yi's cousin in front of her. For a moment, there was only an inexplicable familiarity. But, Yi, your cousin is also a pioneer, so you two are a family of geniuses, what a strong gene. Lu Jiahe said enviously. She always felt that she was too lonely on the road to becoming a pioneer, so she wanted to find someone to go with her. If she also had a powerful pioneer cousin, practicing together, and looking for the great changes in the world together, how great would that feel? Is your cousin better than you? Lu Jiahe asked Lin Yi secretly. Lin Yi nodded. Much better than me. Hiss. Lu Jiahe was stunned. Lin Yi herself is a genius girl, and such a young cousin is even better than her. What kind of monsters are you? A family of monsters. So sour. Cousin, is this your first mission? I didn't expect you to be Yi's cousin. What a coincidence. Yi and I are like sisters. Her cousin is my cousin. Of course, anything else is fine. Cousin, do you want some water? Do you want some drinks? I'll go buy them. When Lu Jiahe was envious and jealous, she heard Zhao Meng's voice chattering in her ears. This tone. She touched her arm and got goosebumps all over the floor. You're too enthusiastic. Female version of Fei Yangyang. Lu Jiahe gently tugged at the corner of Zhao Meng's clothes, signaling her to be more restrained. If you don't know, you might think your cousin saved your life. However, Zhao Meng didn't notice it at all. I don't need it. Fang Yi declined her kindness with some helplessness. This girl was too enthusiastic, and she couldn't resist it. Several people walked side by side to the deserted land. The other 3 people arrived early and had been waiting for a long time. When Fang Yi and the beautiful girl Lin Yi came together, some people in the team looked unhappy. When Zhao Meng approached them and asked about their well-being, and the cute girl Lu Jiahe followed them, one of them looked even darker. Chapter 51. In the team. A middle-aged pioneer looked at this scene, sighed, frowned slightly, and said meaningfully, "The pioneers nowadays are really younger and younger. I hope you can all be reliable in a while." Judging from the aura emanating from him, this man is a 4-star Ghost Axe realm, which is considered a master. He saw that these people were all young people, and it was human nature to worry about them. But he spoke in an old-fashioned tone, which was very disgusting. What does this person mean? Zhao Meng was a little unhappy. This person and the remaining 2 people next to him were middle-aged people. This sentence, in and out of the words, was despising these young people. The same team, they haven't even entered yet, and they are already fighting internally. Suddenly, her arm was gently grabbed by someone, and Lu Jiahe shook her head at her, signaling her not to make trouble. This action was organized by Sister Galan, and these people were from Sister Galan's side. If they made a fuss at this time, Sister Galan might have a hard time. They were all in the same team, and it would not be good if it affected the mission. Zhao Meng glanced at Fang Yi and Lin Yi's calm expressions, and said nothing more, just leaving one sentence. "Take care of yourself, wait a while, just don't be scared to death." After she finished speaking, she secretly glanced at Fang Yi. Humph, a master of Ghost Axe 5 stars, and a pioneer of high attributes. Can't wait to see their expressions. Now that everyone is here, let's go in. The middle-aged uncle glanced at them, and the spiritual energy in his hand surged, as if he touched something. The door to the extremely dark area opened at their entrance. The next second, everyone's pupils trembled. Even Zhao Meng's pretty face turned pale instantly. Black. The extreme black occupied the site. The thick black fog made this place a monotonous space with only white and black. There was black fog everywhere. The black fog was like a dark beast that devoured everything, drowning everyone in the sticky black. This was a zone paved with dark attributes. It was cold and damp everywhere, revealing a disgusting breath. What is this feeling? So disgusting, so nauseous, I feel like I'm in the morgue of a hospital. No, it's a mass grave. My nose is filled with the stench of rotting corpses and the fishy smell of brain fluids. Is this the darkest zone? They had come into contact with anomalies of dark attributes before, but no anomaly could make them feel so nauseous. Now that they had just stepped into the darkest zone, they felt an unbearable nausea in an instant. This discomfort was a double blow to the psychological and physical aspects, and it was simply a torture. Some people turned pale, and some even vomited directly with a wow. Against the backdrop of the dark attribute, the smell of vomit didn't seem so bad. This is the sense of restraint of the dark attribute on other practitioners. This is a strong sense of corrosion, or pollution, which will greatly reduce the strength of the practitioners. If you live in this atmosphere for a long time, the lifespan of ordinary people will be reduced. This is also the reason why the country is so resistant to anomalies entering the city. The middle-aged man explained with a frown. Before he came, he had come into contact with many anomalies of dark attributes. He hated those abnormalities so much that he wanted to kill them as soon as possible, and his hands were stained with a lot of blood of the dark abnormalities. Therefore, he was particularly sensitive to this kind of breath and hated it. The middle-aged man's reminder made everyone alert. Although this person's speaking attitude was a bit problematic, he was a genuine and powerful pioneer. With people like them leading the team, the possibility of survival was higher. On the way next, in order to save as much energy as possible and reduce the pollution of the dark attribute, everyone shut up and stopped talking, and silence filled the entire extremely dark area. Cough cough. In the darkness, there were light coughs from time to time. Everyone was trying their best to resist the corrosion of the dark attribute, and the sound became weaker and weaker. Cough cough. A suppressed light cough sounded from Fang Yi's side. Lin Yi covered her mouth and nose with her hands, frowned slightly, and looked very uncomfortable. She was originally carsick, and she stepped directly into the encirclement of the dark attribute all the way here. At this moment, her weak body was even worse. Seeing her face paler, Fang Yi sighed softly. He reached out his hand, silently supported her back, and patted her twice. The next moment, Lin Yi's body shook, and her eyes widened. She only felt that the place where the big hand behind her patted was as gentle and comfortable as if it was directly illuminated by the sun. The hands were pressed against her back through thin clothes, and the warmth of the palms was like sunlight, instantly dispelling the abnormal discomfort brought by the dark attributes around. The uncomfortable feeling disappeared all at once, and she felt warm all over her body. Even the discomfort of motion sickness disappeared. "Thank you, cousin." Lin Yi lip synced silently. Fang Yi shook her head slightly. At this moment, the middle-aged man accidentally looked back at the end of the team, and his eyes fell on Fang Yi and Lin Yi, feeling a little strange. Everyone here is enduring the corrosion of the dark attributes of the extremely dark zone. They look painful, and some people look like they have been constipated for several months. But Fang Yi and Lin Yi in front of him looked calm, not affected at all. Could it be that they were too patient? Zhao Meng walked beside Lin Yi and saw Fang Yi's big hand on Lin Yi's back. The spiritual energy on the palm was surging, shrouded in a layer of powerful spiritual energy, and the overflowing warm power was very coveted. She couldn't help but walk to Fang Yi's side and asked tremblingly, "Cousin, warm me up too." Fang Yi glanced at her. Zhao Meng was trembling, hunched over, and looked very pitiful. The corrosion of the dark attribute is invisible and tasteless. Even with spiritual energy, it can only be weakened, not completely resisted. Forcing it to endure will make people very uncomfortable. Fang Yi was a little speechless, but still stretched out his other hand and put his palm on Zhao Meng's soft waist. "Okay, warm you all day." Extremely dark area. It has been covered and corroded by darkness for many years. The dark attribute permeates everything like poison. The longer you step into it, the more exhausted you feel physically and mentally. You are shrouded by an invisible fear, unable to breathe or think. Click. "Ah!" someone exclaimed softly. He saw that the withered plant he had just stepped on was hideously twisted, with branches and leaves growing like tumors, emitting a strange light, and a thin layer of black mold covering the ground. Every step he took seemed to be stepping on the pulse of death, and there were waves of creepy sounds. Sometimes she could even hear some vague whispers, and she didn't know where they came from. Once a person steps into this area, even if he does nothing and stays in it for a long time, he will go crazy because he can't bear it. It's not without precedent. We have entered the extremely dark area. There are many abnormalities hidden in the dark nearby, and each one is very powerful. Be careful. The middle-aged man Pan Ning whispered. Suddenly, the darkness in front of him became even darker. The road under his feet, which he could barely see clearly, had now become completely blind. The visibility was only half a meter. Looking at the area next to him, it was all thick darkness. He could only see the road with special means. Lu Jiahe took out a special lantern from somewhere and illuminated the road ahead, emitting a vague light. Deep in the darkness, there were a large number of anomalies lurking. The number of anomalies that rushed into the city only occupied 30% of the extremely dark area at most. The remaining 70% were in this extremely dark area, watching this scene quietly in some corner, patiently waiting for these delicious pioneers to step into their trap. Everyone subconsciously perked up and got closer. Swish! Suddenly, a sound of breaking through the air was heard. The person holding the lantern shook and screamed. "What is that?" He saw a shadow flash by. The weak light illuminated the road ahead, and only a shadow could be vaguely seen. A huge black figure rushed over. His eyes were dark and sinister. His body was covered with cracks and festering wounds. Blood and rotten fur hung on it, emitting a disgusting rotten smell, as if a ghost crawled out of a grave. It's an abnormality of the dark attribute. The breath moved quickly and swept in front of them. This terrible thing was just a breath away from them. Meow! A violent cat cry sounded, and the rotten cat demon rushed out of the darkness, leaving a yellow mucus all over the ground, almost corroding the ground, extremely terrifying. The pupils of everyone present contracted. The rotten breath rushed towards him, just like a zombie that had been sleeping for 1,000 years suddenly opened its coffin and rushed to his face. Even the turbid and evil breath on the fangs could be smelled clearly when it opened its mouth. This feeling was no different from a kind of biochemical pollution. Abnormal. Lin Yi frowned tightly. She moved her palm slightly, and a layer of faint white light gradually condensed, as if the stars were condensing. However, Just as she was about to throw this punch, someone was faster than her. A sharp sound of breaking through the air sounded. She subconsciously looked up. Pan Ning made a move. Pan Ning's figure flashed like lightning, and he punched out. The transparent aura condensed into a majestic force, which exploded in the direction of the cat demon. He waved his arm, the transparent aura gathered, and the majestic force exploded. Puff! The corrupt cat demon was suddenly blown up by a punch, screamed directly, and then his body exploded in midair. The power of the 4-star ghost axe exploded undoubtedly. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi paused, and the aura condensed in her palm disappeared instantly. Everyone also breathed a sigh of relief. A great sense of security surged into my heart. Although there was some friction with this 4-star pioneer before, his strength was here, which made people feel at ease. The cat demon's body fell to the ground, and the corroded ground suddenly began to absorb its flesh and blood. The ground was like a damaged painting that was forcibly restored with one click. The corroded holes began to disappear and gradually became flat. The ground actually absorbed the cat demon's body and then restored to a dark appearance again. This ground also absorbed too much dark attributes, and the dark power contained in it was even worse than that of the cat demon. Pan Ning sighed, looked at Fang Yi and others, and shook his head helplessly. It's abnormal on your face, don't stand still. After saying this, he sighed. What happened to that woman? The teammates assigned to him are more unreliable than each other. It is not so easy to enter the dark zone. There are many abnormalities here. The corrupt cat demon that just appeared should be the weakest one among them. But when it just rushed over, the boys seemed to be scared and stood there. Pan Ning felt a little strange again. In fact, when he made a move just now, he felt a very strong force. That force was different from the power of the dark attribute. It was an extremely explosive and strange sense of suppression. That feeling made him feel very palpitating. That breath was fleeting. It was like a powerful existence, just about to make a move, and suddenly stopped. Is it an illusion? Pan Ning glanced at the group of people behind him again, especially Lin Yi. Her action just now seemed to be about to make a move, right? Could it be her? After getting rid of the cat demon, the team continued to move forward. On the other side, Zhao Meng's forehead was covered with cold sweat. So scary. She was not referring to the rotting cat demon, but Fang Yi. Fang Yi was so scary. She had just clearly seen Fang Yi's hand on the hilt of the long knife at his waist. At that moment, Zhao Meng felt like she was going to die. She seemed to have walked directly into the sun. The sunlight enveloped her completely, the blazing flames flowed and burned on her body, and she felt like she was about to melt. Fortunately, when she was about to collapse, Fang Yi stopped. The terrifying aura of suppression also disappeared without a trace. However, just when she was relieved, swish swish swish. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed in the sky. If someone who lived by the sea for many years could hear it at once, it was the sound of waves hitting the shore. Strange, how could there be the sound of waves? The man holding the lantern looked up and his eyes widened instantly. I saw that there were really waves on the horizon. The majestic black attribute instantly submerged the entire ground into black, and the black spreading and blazing rotten smell was extremely powerful. That was the ultimate dark attribute. In an instant, the dark attribute gathered into a huge wave, turning into thousands of layers of waves, and the angry waves were surging. Swish. In an instant, the black waves rolled from a long distance towards Fang Yi and others, with a clear momentum and sweeping over with a surging momentum. The team members were shocked. What's going on? What is that? Why do I feel that the breath of the dark attribute has become much stronger all of a sudden? What's going on with those waves? Is it the ocean polluted by the dark attribute? Why is it coming towards us? The breath that suddenly erupted is so terrifying. For a moment, everyone showed a horrified expression. Pan Ning's eyes were red, and he said 4 words in disbelief. Dark tide. ... What's going on? How could the dark tide in the darkest zone erupt at this time? That kind of thing is the extreme of the dark attribute, and it is a corruption that devours everything. Our plan has clearly avoided the day of the tide. Why did it appear at this time? The dark attribute can actually forcefully condense the tide and turn the entire darkest zone into a doomsday land. Now the entire entrance has been blocked. When the dark tide erupts, the darkest zone will fall directly, and even the abnormalities inside cannot be avoided. At this moment, across the screen, a beautiful figure looked at the surveillance of each team entering the darkest zone, and her beautiful eyes shrank suddenly. The dark tide should not have appeared at this time. They have calculated everything to the extreme under the premise of being able to do so. But it appeared, and it appeared in Team 3, which has the weakest overall strength and the most foreign pioneers. Once the dark tide unfolds, the surrounding area will be involved in the extreme darkness, unable to enter or leave. Team 3. How did it encounter such a thing? Extremely dark place. At this moment, everyone was stunned. They seemed to see black waves. The roar of the sea could be heard faintly, like an angry beast roaring to the sky, and the sound of the waves gradually approached, making people feel as if they were on the shore, watching the deep sea shaking up the huge waves that reached the sky and swallowed the shore. What is this? Is it sea water? Why do I hear the sound of sea water? Is there still a sea in this extremely dark area? What is the dark tide? Lin Yi was stunned. She felt a strong sense of uneasiness, which was even more terrifying than when she faced the vines before, making her scalp numb. The sound of the waves contained extremely terrifying dangers. She realized that many of the surrounding auras were exposed at once. That was the abnormality in the extremely dark area. They still ignored the number of abnormalities here. The creatures were endless, and this kind of place was full of all kinds of crazy mutant creatures. And now, they were all blown out by the dark tide. Visible to the naked eye, a huge fox demon rushed out, its rotten hair and scarlet eyes echoed, and it swung a huge and unreasonable tail from afar, rushing towards them suddenly. Boom! Lin Yi smashed its head with a slap. But it was useless. In the darkness, a terrifying wave suddenly blew up. From a distance, a huge vortex appeared, like a raging wind and waves, and countless anomalies emerged like dense black dots. Everyone's scalp tightened. So many. At this moment, those powerful and tricky anomalies had no time to attack them, but just screamed and roared, running out desperately, as if the death sickle of the god of death was chasing their tails behind them. Dark tide. The sound of the waves as the dark tide condensed by the dark attribute. As long as it touches, it will be corroded and polluted by the dark attribute, swallowing everything, and even the anomalies can't resist. Run! Pan Ning shouted. Everyone immediately ran subconsciously. And the terrifying black tide, like the sea water, began to spread wildly towards this side. The waves slapped the ground wildly. It swallowed up the road in front of it inch by inch, and it was pitch black. Roar! A series of miserable screams sounded, and the slower abnormalities were directly torn into pieces in the tide, leaving only a scream. That was a powerful dark attribute that even abnormalities could not resist. Run fast, you must not be caught up, absolutely, absolutely not. I seem to be unable to run a little bit. The tide behind was like a relentless beast, approaching Team 3 at the fastest speed, and the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Haze and despair began to spread. Can I escape? Pan Ning was a little dazed. He was the most powerful pioneer in the team, and the strength of the Ghost Axe 4 stars was enough to make him get a lot of awe-inspiring eyes, but at this moment, he looked at the dark tide coming in front of him, and his eyes were full of fear and trembling. His hands were shaking because of fear. Am I going to die here? The terrible tide directly engulfed the place where they had just stood. There were screams that made people's scalps numb. One by one, the abnormalities were chased and drowned by the tide. Pan Ning understood deeply. Team 3 has no way out. They are going to be buried in this tide. Cousin. Lin Yi tightly grasped Fang Yi's sleeves, tears in her eyes. She had imagined her own death scene countless times. From the first day she became a pioneer, she knew that she would definitely usher in that day, but she didn't expect that this day would come so soon. Dark attribute. Their spiritual energy was suppressed and their strength was restricted. And now, this terrifying tide is overwhelming, and it is directly taking lives. It's over. Am I going to die here? Her legs have begun to weaken, and she can't run anymore. Her consciousness is gradually becoming confused. She seemed to see her cousin gently patting her shoulder. The next second, boom, crash, the sound of the tide suddenly disappeared. The sound of drawing a sword suddenly sounded, and then a terrifying firelight slashed forward like a running dragon, and the entire black ocean was instantly dyed red by the firelight, and the blazing flames bloomed. Boom boom boom, centered in the direction where Fang Yi was. All the anomalies around, one by one, the terrifying figures, exploded instantly. The fire dragon surged in the tide. The powerful and terrifying sealing technique suddenly bloomed in the raging firelight. All the pioneers of Team 3 saw a scene that frightened them. The terrifying tide that forced them to flee all the way, and those abnormal creatures hiding on the side. At this moment, they were all tightly locked by a finger-thick fire ring, floating in the air. It was as if time was forbidden. The surging black waves were also blocked by the fire ring, and stopped dead at a distance of 1 meter from them. It was as if they were isolated by the fire ring. Everyone was shocked. What is this? The black tide was blocked. Such a powerful fire attribute. It's incredible. Fire attribute, seal. Pan Ning's eyes froze. He could feel the powerful seal contained in the flame, the terrifying power like 9 dragons, like a huge mountain, tightly suppressing the dark tide. The dark attribute was suppressed by this extreme seal power and could not go any further, so it was blocked halfway. His face changed, and his back was soaked with cold sweat. How is it possible that he can seal the dark attribute? The dark tide is the ultimate dark attribute blended together, gathering into a tide, devouring and polluting all creatures at all costs. Even the abnormalities are vulnerable to it, and only the high-level attributes can barely resist it, but he actually stopped the tide with a single knife. Who is he? Instantly, everyone's eyes reflected an incredible picture. I saw the black wave rolling and surging, and the unpleasant fishy smell came to my face. It was like a tsunami trying to get closer, and the huge waves splashed everywhere, but it could never break through the obstruction of the fire ring. The next second, Fang Yi moved his fingers. I saw the fire ring slowly shrinking. Every inch it shrank, the tide was forced to shrink a circle. Gradually, the fire ring shrank to the size of a palm, and the terrifying tide was also trapped in the narrow fire ring, becoming a pool of black water. The turbulent tide was trapped in the fire ring. Next to it. The pioneers who were almost nervous before were all stunned. The dark tide. The horrible disaster that swallowed everything. It was sealed just like that. Sealed. Pan Ning stared at the scene blankly, feeling that his worldview had been greatly impacted. Are you kidding? The dark tide was sealed just like that. Even the powerful high stars in the military had a headache when they came, and the dark attribute was trapped by a fire ring. A young man who looks like a college student is so powerful. For a moment, his eyes looking at Fang Yi became extremely complicated. Then the next moment, the people in the monitoring room stared at the figures of Team 3, watching them being chased by the tide. They had given up struggling, but when they saw the knife coming out, her eyes suddenly froze, and then she saw the scene of the fire ring sealing. He sealed the dark attribute. The skyfire trembled, and the terrifying sealing force suppressed it strongly. The black tide surged in the fire ring, and fine cracks like broken glass appeared on the surface, as if the dark attribute in it was struggling. Suddenly, another knife of skyfire was cut out. The black water surface burned directly with raging flames, and instantly became boiling. Several dragons could be vaguely seen wandering in it, which was very terrifying. Under this unreasonable cremation, the black water turned into thick black mist, drifting out of the fire ring, emitting a pungent and unpleasant smell. For a while, the air was silent. As the saying goes, water and fire counteract each other. When fire meets water, either the fire is extinguished or the water evaporates. Who is stronger and who is weaker can be seen at a glance. But the problem is, that is the tide transformed by the high-level dark attribute. The dark attribute is extremely domineering and corrodes everything. Now it is actually evaporated into water vapor by this fire. The man stood in front of Lin Yi, his body straight, the tang sword turned in his hand and put it back to his waist, sealing the dark tide that destroyed everything into the fire ring, and said lightly, "This seal will not last long, there are too many dark attributes, so go as soon as possible." This sentence seemed to wake up everyone. They came back to their senses and looked at Fang Yi with eyes full of shock. Zhao Meng was the first to cry out, and the emotion of surviving a disaster made her really unable to hold back. "Cousin, woo, cousin, you saved me again, I have nothing to repay, I can only repay you with my body. Seal the dark tide with one sword, is this a real human? Oh, it's a monster. My knees are so weak, I just want to kneel down to him now. Really, I feel like I can't raise my head in front of him at all." Kneeling down is more in line with our relationship. The word genius has a vivid image for the first time. A cool, handsome guy should play with fire. At this moment, Pan Ning looked at the figure with a very complicated expression. What did he say before he came in? Oh, don't hold me back. Now it seems that these 4 words should be given to everyone except him, including himself, because in front of him, everyone is no different from a burden. You. Pan Ning smiled bitterly. Originally, he thought these young people were unreliable, and felt that his teammates in this mission were too careless and might hold him back, so he was a little dissatisfied. But at this moment, looking at this knife, he just wanted to say one thing. Are young people nowadays so fierce? Pan Ning put away his contempt and showed a respectful look. And at this moment, although the dark tide has been trapped in the fire ring, boiling and burning, but the terrifying dark breath turned into water vapor and continued to emit, and the smell of corruption lingered. When everyone walked forward, they deliberately avoided the fire ring, fearing that the dark attribute would break free and overflow. The terrifying oppression of the tide still made them feel scared. Fang Yi walked at the back to cover the rear. At this moment, when everyone turned their backs to him, no one noticed that a faint halo appeared in Fang Yi's dark pupils. Strong dark attribute fluctuations were detected just now. Ultimate computing power is being activated. Writing. Written successfully. You have obtained the dark attribute ability, Infinite Dark Realm. Effect. Pull the opponent into a closed black fog space, in which they will be eroded by the dark attribute and weakened by 30%. The appearance of the dark tide is not without gain. While sealing the dark attribute, the technique has been successfully written. Dark Realm. A special domain. As long as I use this domain, I can force the opponent into me, superimpose the corrosion effect of the dark attribute, and directly weaken the opponent's strength for a 1v1 duel. The advantage is mine. Fang Yi's mind moved. The pupil flickered, and a dark domain emerged in his eyes. At a glance, it was like staring into the dark abyss, and there seemed to be deep vortices interweaving in it, exuding a strong sense of mystery. At this moment, Lin Yi looked back and saw this scene. Her scalp suddenly went numb and her heart trembled. Impossible. In such a harsh and exhausting environment. My cousin has become stronger again. How did he do it? There was no big change just now. The only thing that appeared was the dark tide. Lin Yi was confused on the spot. Could it be that he benefited from the dark tide? But the problem is that in this world, the most terrifying thing about the dark attribute is the power formed by the negative emotions and hidden malice deep in the hearts of all living beings. Xiaoguo strictly prohibits touching this power. There was a pioneer who tried to control the dark attribute, but after a few seconds of contact, he immediately went crazy. This is the horror of the dark attribute. If the higher attributes such as the yang attribute and the thunder attribute are the strongest, then the dark attribute is to bind and devour the user's soul. When eroded by the dark attribute, the endless despair and fear will flood the soul like a tide, and people will fall into an abyss of darkness from which they cannot extricate themselves. Lin Yi once heard Galan say something. She said, "Those who have tried to touch the dark attribute will eventually find themselves trapped in an endless darkness and will never find a way back." The horror of the dark attribute is that it is a power beyond human understanding and control. It is an existence beyond the natural order and a power that human pioneers cannot master. Not only her. At this moment, in front of the surveillance screen, Galan's expression changed several times, and her eyes fell on the man's face. Team 3 actually survived and passed through the dark tide that killed all living things. Her mind was surging. This team only had Pan Ning's 3 old team members leading it. The overall strength was the weakest, and the route assigned to them was also the most marginal one. They didn't expect to encounter the extremely rare dark tide, and they didn't expect that someone among them could seal the dark attribute. She flipped through the information at hand. Each team had a simple list registration, which contained the information of that person. Fang Yi, Lin Yi's cousin. In the picture, Team 3 was constantly approaching the destination on the established route. The deeper they went, the more abnormalities appeared. Suddenly, boom, a rotten leopard rushed out. Its fur was mottled and faded, and it was filled with a disgusting stench. The leopard's eyes were dim and dull. It should have been a dying wreckage, but its decayed body was stronger than the muscular body. A disgusting and powerful sense of oppression came over him, which was the sign of the dark attribute. Roar! The spotted leopard roared and rushed directly towards Team 3. However, at this moment, one of the team moved and suddenly kicked out with a whip kick. In an instant, the sound of air exploding sounded. The spotted leopard howled and blood spurted wildly. Lin Yi retracted her legs and continued to walk in without even looking. The same scene was repeated. One by one, the abnormalities rushed out, but they were not even the opponents of Pan Ning and Lin Yi. With Fang Yi's yang attribute to alleviate the erosion of the dark attribute, and the sequelae of motion sickness gradually disappeared, Lin Yi was responsible for most of the abnormalities. Occasionally, when encountering one or two abnormalities that could not be solved, Fang Yi would take action at the right time. Boom! The rocks in front collapsed. A huge lizard slowly walked out of the darkness, with black metal-like scales all over its body, growing like a dragon, and with strange horns on its head. This anomaly just approached Team 3, and it didn't have time to attack. The next moment, Fang Yi drew his knife. The flame pattern flashed, and a terrifying stream of flames burst out from the tip of the knife. Puff! Fireworks fell from the sky. The wailing sound rang in the ears, and the huge anomaly suddenly collapsed, and sparks exploded next to its corpse, accompanied by a sharp roar that sounded like magic. One knife, and it was killed in seconds. Everyone was shocked to numbness watching this scene. Since my cousin walked in front, this road feels 100% safe. Is it your cousin? Why are you yelling? My God, my cousin is so powerful. My cousin only needs to make a slight move to kill all these anomalies. Under the leadership of Fang Yi, Team 3 advanced at an incredibly fast speed. When Pan Ning stepped over the corpse, his footsteps were heavy, and the splashing flesh and blood even rubbed against his shoe surface. At this moment, he had no time to care about it. His eyes of admiration fell on Fang Yi's back, looking at the invincible Tang sword on his waist, and he was even a little scared. Pan Ning is a 4-star pioneer in the Ghost Axe realm. Among the current pioneers, he is already in the top 10%, but at this moment, he is afraid of the young man in front of him. When ordinary people see pioneers, it is like a frog in a well seeing the moon in the sky. But when he sees Fang Yi, it is like a mayfly seeing the blue sky. The huge difference in talent between them makes him afraid. This is completely beyond the compensation of hard work and diligence. The world has changed drastically. How many pioneers claim to be extraordinary? How many people break the shackles? Everyone thinks they can change their fate, but when they see someone like Fang Yi, their proud spines are deeply crushed. And Pan Ning's eyes moved away from Fang Yi and fell on Lin Yi next to him. This is his cousin. Just now, Lin Yi made several shots to kill abnormalities. The means are straightforward and fearless in the face of danger. Although he is not as good as her evil cousin, he has achieved great success at such a young age. He will have great potential in the future. Thinking of this, Pan Ning couldn't help but sigh. The strength of these young people nowadays should not be underestimated. We must not underestimate these pillars of the country in the future. An old saying popped up in his mind. The Yangtze River's back waves push the front waves, and the front waves die in. Pay, too unlucky. Cousin. Suddenly, a female voice broke the silence, and a bright smile came into Fang Yi's eyes. Zhao Meng trotted to Fang Yi's side. She was calling him cousin more and more skillfully, and she was more familiar with calling him cousin than Lin Yi, the real cousin. What's the matter? Fang Yi looked at her. I brought some refreshing chewing gum with me. The dark attribute along the way had a great impact. Although it may not be useful, it tastes very sweet. Zhao Meng poured the chewing gum and stuffed it into Fang Yi and Lin Yi's hands. Lin Yi still had a faint expression. Thank you, young woman. Zhao Meng. Actually, my ID of 81-year-old beautiful young woman was just a random one. I'm only 18 this year, and I'm not a young woman. Zhao Meng stole a glance at Fang Yi. Fang Yi nodded slightly. The gum is delicious. Is it delicious? It's okay as long as it's delicious. I'll buy this flavor in the future. Zhao Meng returned to the team happily as if she had been rewarded. Lu Jiahe next to her saw her worthless appearance and rolled his eyes. Didn't you say that this taste is as bad as eating shit? Did you avoid it? Will you buy it every day in the future? Zhao Meng had a serious face. What do you know? To tie a man's heart, you must first tie his stomach. Lu Jiahe. Zhao Meng has now become Fang Yi's brainless fan, oh no, wife fan, and there is a breath of obsession in her words. However, Lu Jiahe thought of Fang Yi's heaven-defying sealing technique, and she silently flipped through her pockets. Cousin, I have some sugar, too. It tastes like grapefruit, better than hers. Do you want to try it? Zhao Meng. Just then, the team suddenly stopped, and Zhao Meng and Lu Jiahe stopped fooling around and looked over curiously. Pan Ning, who was walking in the front, stopped where he was and looked at the strange bone field in front of him. We're here. Pan Ning's voice trembled. In front of him was a huge cemetery. The black soil exuded a strong stench of decay and the breath of death. The soil was covered with a thick layer of black dust, and time seemed to have stopped here. White bones were scattered on the land, some broken, some neatly arranged, and there was a broken corner of clothes between the mud cracks, with a half-broken bracelet on it. Fang Yi noticed that the style of the bracelet seemed familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen it. And in the black all over the ground, a white flower suddenly bloomed and swayed, exuding a mysterious and noble atmosphere, as if it could cleanse all the darkness in the world. The lost quenching flower. That's the lost quenching flower. We actually found it. Old Wu is saved. The pillar of Sha country will not fall. For a moment, everyone couldn't help but tremble all over, ecstatic. The purpose of their visit this time was the lost quenching flower. It was said that a powerful high-ranking person in Sha country was seriously injured and only the lost quenching flower could heal him. At this moment, the lost quenching flower, which symbolizes hope and the future, is right in front of them. The mission goal of this trip is about to be achieved. At this moment, looking at the strange white flower of lost temper in front of the screen, Gulan stood up suddenly, staring at the flower with her beautiful eyes, and her breathing stopped. Lost temper flower. That is the lost temper flower. Team 3 has successfully arrived at the mission site and is about to start picking flowers, hiss. She frowned and looked at her injured arm. The white jade-like arm was wrapped with layers of gauze, which was now soaked in blood. A terrifying ball was placed on the shoulder, as if it had just been fished out of blood. A tearing sound was heard. Gulan tore off the gauze expressionlessly, revealing the hideous wound inside, with a series of corrupt bite marks interlaced, and the teeth marks were deep enough to see the bone. This was left when she entered the extremely dark area, and it was permeated with a strong dark breath. She changed the gauze for herself with one hand, and her technique was familiar, as if she had repeated it countless times. The lost tempered flower has finally been found, and Uncle Wu's injury can be cured. I didn't expect that what even the spiritual association couldn't do was actually done by those pioneers outside. Gulan lowered her eyes, and her thick eyelashes covered the teardrop mole under her eyes. Half a month ago, she had entered the dark zone with the spiritual association, but unfortunately they failed. At the last moment of finding the lost tempered flower, the powerful anomaly lurking nearby suddenly rose up and surrounded and annihilated the sword-holder team. In order to cover their evacuation, the captain stayed in that land forever. The sword-holder team failed, but Team 3 succeeded. A team that was not expected. No one expected that this team, which they had not been optimistic about from the beginning, actually successfully arrived at the mission location. According to experience, Team 3 will face the surrounding anomalies. The land where the lost tempering flower grows is located deep in the dark zone. Those anomalies are polluted by the dark attribute and are violent, murderous, and thirsty for blood. They are more bloody than those outside. If the pioneers fall into it, it will be no different from a sheep falling into the tiger's mouth. But Gulan is not very worried about the safety of Team 3 because of the thin figure in the team. Fang Yi. To be honest, all her attention was on this person along the way. After seeing his strength, she suddenly felt that the group of anomalies should be afraid of fighting. Die, or retreat. It's a very simple choice. As Fang Yi walked along, as long as he made a move, the anomalies were killed in one blow, and he never cut a second knife. The more relaxed he was, the greater the deterrence to the anomalies. The anomalies are extremely cunning. Didn't you see that after Fang Yi made a move, there were fewer and fewer anomalies blocking the road? They almost didn't encounter anything in the second half of the way, which explained the problem. It is the nature of animals to bully the weak and fear the strong. Fang Yi was too tough, and it was impossible to fight him hard. The flames that fell from the sky with his sword were particularly fierce and magnificent. They didn't look like fire, but rather a bit like yang. As expected, As Galan expected, the process of Team 3 picking the lost tempering flower was easy and pleasant, without any obstacles. After seeing Fang Yi pick the lost tempering flower, even they themselves were confused. Zhao Meng directly asked Pan Ning, "Is that enough?" "That's enough." Pan Ning nodded heavily. "Did you get 1 million? You can get it when you go back." Zhao Meng was confused. Is this money too easy to make? But she knew in her heart that everything was thanks to Fang Yi. If it weren't for him, this group of people would have died in the dark tide long ago. Seeing that everyone started to walk back, Galan tapped the headset lightly and released the same message to everyone. His cold voice sounded in the ears of the leaders of each team. "The mission is completed, everyone can retreat. You have all taken great risks this time, so everyone's 1 million reward will not be missed, and the team that completes the mission will receive an additional reward." As soon as these words came out, the other two teams were all blown up. They looked at each other as if they had heard something incredible. What happened? Has anyone completed the mission? It's impossible. We have been trapped here since we entered the darkest zone. It's hard to move. Even taking a step forward is a luxury. And you tell me that someone has entered the innermost part and got the lost quenching flower. At this moment, both teams were facing groups of anomalies. The twisted ground, rotten fur, the pungent stench, and the pairs of dark red eyes flashing with fishy smell in the darkness, obviously, they were all in a difficult battle. So, how did that team complete the mission? Desolate land. A middle-aged man with a serious expression and a thumb-long scar on his brow was waiting outside. He was full of strong aura and unfathomable, standing at the door as steady as a mountain. Seeing Fang Yi and others coming, he looked at the lost tempered flower in Fang Yi's hand. "The mission is completed, just give the flower to me." Fang Yi stepped forward and did as he was told. Lin Yi behind him grabbed her arm, a little nervous. The scarred man in front of her gave her a majestic and mysterious aura, as if he could easily crush them to death with a slight raise of his hand. This terrifying suppression force is definitely the top pioneer among the top. The subordinates are so strong. What is Sister Galan's identity? After accepting the lost tempered flower, the man nodded to Fang Yi and left. When he left, everyone present, except Fang Yi, breathed a sigh of relief. What a terrifying sense of oppression. The aura on him is extremely strong. I don't know what realm he is in. It feels far beyond me. I am more nervous when facing him than facing those abnormalities inside. When he spoke just now, I didn't dare to breathe. My cousin actually dared to go up and look at him and hand him flowers. His momentum was not inferior to his. It was really terrifying. After the mission was over, everyone evacuated the dark zone and returned to the entrance of the wasteland. As a result, as soon as they came out, they found that the scarred man sent by Galan was waiting there. Fang Yi returned to the team as if nothing had happened and asked his cousin. "Go home." "Yes." Lin Yi nodded. The mission was completed. Next, they just needed to wait for Sister Galan to transfer the money. There was no point for them to stay here. Zhao Meng looked at the site eagerly. What should I do if I want to go home with my cousin? Waiting online, urgent. At this time, an SUV drove past her. The car window slowly rolled down, and Lu Jiahe's iconic eye mask jumped out of the window. "Young lady, my driver is here to pick you up and give you a ride." "No, and don't call me young lady anymore, I want to change my name." "Did you take the wrong medicine today? Don't you always ask me to drive this car? You said you wanted to experience the feeling of crying in a BMW, Zhao Meng covered her mouth and explained with a smile to Fang Yi, who was attracted by the movement here. "She's not talking about me, she's lost her mind." Lu Jiahe rolled her eyes. She broke free from Zhao Meng's hand, waved to Lin Yi, and pointed to her phone. "Yi, Sister Jolin is looking for you in the group." Lin Yi was stunned when she heard it. "Looking for me?" Sister Jolin is usually very cold, why did she suddenly look for her? Could it be related to this mission? Lin Yi took out her phone from her backpack and opened the small group of martial arts first. The message of Jolin came into view directly. "Galan, Yi Fenghaju, can I talk to your cousin alone?" In this group, Galan's every move is like a flashlight, which can easily stir up thousands of waves. As soon as her message came out, people in the group couldn't hold back their desire to eat melons, and jumped out one after another. Even Wenju, who was set to be indifferent and self-sustaining, jumped out to ask at the first time. Danmo Wenju. What's the situation? Your cousin is here too. Thunder Dharma King. Why did Galan look for Yi's cousin? Is your cousin a pioneer? Nuantian milk sauce. Oh my god. Yi's cousin actually participated in this mission. Brothers and sisters are so amazing. I also want to learn from you. Danmo Wenju. I'm very curious, what did Yi cousin do to make Galan want to see him? 81-year-old beautiful young woman, catandcathead.jpg. Zhao Meng also posted an expression in the group, but she didn't say anything, just snorted coquettishly. Humph, a bunch of mortals, do you understand the value of my cousin? The group message was quickly refreshed. Jolin did not send any more messages. The next second, a message popped up on Lin Yi's mobile phone screen. Ding dong, you received a friend request, applicant, Jolin. Even Lin Yi, who has always been indifferent, was a little surprised at this moment. You know, since she joined the group for half a year, she has seen Jolin speak only a few times, not to mention tagging and adding people as friends. Even Wenju, who has the longest experience, is not worthy of her friend status. But now, she actually received Jolin's active application because of her cousin. Is this considered to be a blessing from her cousin? Lin Yi was a little amused and showed her mobile phone to Fang Yi, and explained the message in the group truthfully. Cousin, Sister Jolin wants to see you, are you willing to go? Yes, why not? Fang Yi nodded without hesitation, he was also very interested in Jolin. Okay, Lin Yi nodded and lowered her head to reply to Galan's message. After a while, the scarred man turned back again. He came to Fang Yi and nodded slightly at Fang Yi. He just nodded politely before, but this time Fang Yi could feel that the other party was very respectful. Is it Mr. Fang Yi? It's me. Please follow me. Fang Yi followed behind him and felt the majestic aura coming from the other party, as if facing the sea. It can be seen that the strength of this scarred man should be above Guifu, but Fang Yi can't feel the specific strength. However, such a powerful pioneer actually waited for Galan's orders. Fang Yi couldn't help but become more interested in Galan's identity. There was an off-road vehicle parked next to it, and several people with a calm aura stood around. They looked well-trained and a bit like soldiers. When passing by them, Fang Yi didn't look away. The scarred man led Fang Yi to the side of the car, nodded slightly to Fang Yi, and then left. Fang Yi got in the car. A tall figure sat in the car. She had long legs and a hot body. A teardrop mole dotted the corner of her eye on her delicate face, which made her cold look more charming. She leaned on the seat, with a bandage wrapped around her arm. The bandage was soaked with blood, but she didn't care at all. When she turned her head to look at Fang Yi, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. She was younger than in the video. This was a boy with bright eyes, a well-proportioned figure, a handsome appearance, and a fair face. When he saw her, he was neither humble nor arrogant, and his demeanor was extraordinary. Hello, I'm Zhao Lan, I know you, you are Lin Yi's cousin, Fang Yi. This time I met you, mainly to thank you for bringing out the lost quenching flower from the dark zone. Zhao Lan's aura was very strong. As soon as she opened her mouth, she could hear a sense of being in a high position. She looked at Fang Yi's reaction with deep eyes. Fang Yi looked at her. Bringing out the lost tempered flower is a mission requirement, I just did it. I know, I have already transferred the 1 million reward to your card, and added an additional 500,000. If it weren't for you, this mission would not have succeeded. Thank you, you saved Mr. Wu's life. Fang Yi noticed the Mr. Wu she mentioned. He had vaguely heard Pan Ning mention that this lost tempered flower mission was to save a big shot in Sha country. If I remember correctly, the big shot's surname is Wu. What is the relationship between Galan and this big shot? Galan looked at Fang Yi, as if she wanted to see through him, but she couldn't help shaking her head and laughing. I didn't expect that without the help of the country and the military, a pioneer like you could be born. Her eyes were cold, she turned her head and stared out the window, blood dripping from her body, but she didn't waver at all, as if she had long been accustomed to being injured. This mission is to save one of my elders, who has devoted himself to the country and died. Fang Yi nodded. Now he also knows the full picture of this mission. An old man of the country is seriously injured and dying, and the people of the Spirit Association have entered once, but the mission failed. And the reason why they were able to enter the darkest place this time was because of Fang Yi's Yang attribute, and the 9 Dragons Sky Fire Seal was too domineering, otherwise the Dark Tide would be enough to wipe out their entire army. Do you want to know what the country is like now? Fang Yi nodded slightly. I am willing to listen. Galan sighed. His voice was crisp and pleasant, but he could hear the solemnity in it. Now the world is changing drastically, but the most important thing for the country, or what we should say is fear, is the dark attribute. Because of the influence of the revival of spiritual energy, all the spirits of the world have begun to evolve, and the dark attribute can make those creatures begin to evolve incorrectly, that is, evolve into strange anomalies. Now, the number of these dark attribute anomalies is increasing, and the scope of influence is also expanding. They are like cancers, lurking in various parts of the country, and may cause catastrophic consequences at any time. Therefore, the country has to do its best to set up restricted areas to block them, and the teams of the Spirit Association are strictly guarding in the city. The number of anomalies is growing rapidly, and the situation will only become more serious in the future. She glanced at Fang Yi and suddenly said, I tell you this not to restrict you, or to morally kidnap you, but because I think you are such an excellent pioneer, you are qualified to know these situations. Knowing this, you can calm down in the future chaos. I understand. Fang Yi nodded lightly. The two smiled at each other. As top pioneers, they all have a tacit understanding at this moment. Jolin slowly brewed a cup of tea, and the rich tea fragrance was refreshing. The two sipped the tea for a while, and Fang Yi slowly said, If I encounter an abnormality, I will not stand idly by, you can rest assured about this. Jolin was stunned for a moment, and then she looked at Fang Yi deeply. If I asked you to talk alone at the beginning, it was just to meet you, a pioneer. But now, I really want to be friends with you. If the friends in the group chat knew that Jolin, who was so cold that he had no friends, would actually say such a thing, they would definitely be surprised. Jolin stretched out his slender jade hand, and Fang Yi politely shook it lightly to show respect. The two drank tea and began to talk about the great changes in the world and the revival of spiritual energy, and became more and more familiar. If there is a mission in the future, I will find you. It is too much of a waste of talent for a pioneer like you to do ordinary tasks. Fang Yi agreed. Suddenly, his eyes moved down and fell on Jolin's arm. By the way, your injury. Jolin was stunned for a moment. Then Fang Yi's right hand burst out with blue arc lightning, and Galan felt numb all over. Then she could clearly feel that the dark aura on the wound was completely removed. No, it was more like it was shattered. The dark attribute left in the wound would prevent the wound from healing, and it was because of this that she was seriously injured and could not heal. Galan's pupils shrank slightly. Is he actually a pioneer of Thunder attribute? Under the critical strike of Thunder attribute, the dark attribute had nowhere to hide and was completely destroyed. Galan noticed that the wound that had been bleeding continuously had a tendency to slowly stop in this cold arc. Fang Yi cleared the dark attribute from her arm, stood up and said, I should go, my cousin is still waiting for me. Before leaving, Jolin also stood up, with a palm-sized token in his hand. Thank you for this time. This flower is very important for Mr. Wu's injury. Also, keep this token first. Fang Yi looked at the token in her hand. It was a black token, cold to the touch. I don't know what material it is made of. There is a domineering and mighty dragon pattern engraved on it, and 4 words are engraved just below the token. Star God War Zone. Fang Yi was shocked. It turned out to be a military man, and it was the most powerful Star God War Zone among all the war zones. Fang Yi left the SUV. Looking at his resolute back, Jolin sighed in his heart. People like them who carry out missions are all monsters, and they have their own forces secretly cultivating them behind them, but Fang Yi is different. Fang Yi really relies on his own strength to rub in this darkness and unknown, and he also has absolute strength to participate in their missions. Returned to his small apartment. Lin Yi went home to change clothes and went out to buy groceries. Along the way, she did not ask Fang Yi what Galan called her to talk about. In her opinion, it was normal for her cousin's strength to attract attention. Fang Yi stood at the window, looking at the city below. Not long ago, I stood here, still an ordinary person who failed the college entrance examination, with a bleak future, but now, when I stand here again, my identity and situation are different. With the 1 million in the card, he felt confident. Fang Yi sighed for a while and began to check what he had gained from the dark zone before. Infinite Dark Realm. It can drag the opponent into my dark realm. Once they enter, their strength will be weakened. Moreover, the longer they stay in it, the more terrible the damage of the dark attribute will be. This ability is a bit similar to the Dark Tide in the Darkest Zone. The dark attribute originally has a huge corrosive and influential effect on living things. If they are trapped for a long enough time, it is possible to drive people crazy directly. It is a relatively tortuous method. Fang Yi is very satisfied with this ability. In terms of instantaneous burst damage and dazzling effects, this ability is not as good as the Divine Thunder 100 refinements and the Red Fire Sword technique. However, this slow cooking torture flow ability will be very disgusting when used in actual combat, causing the opponent to suffer great physical and mental torture. Moreover, the power of the Infinite Dark Realm is far more than that. The opponent will be weakened in this dark realm, but for Fang Yi, it is like a fish in water. Really like a fish in water. If the dark attribute is compared to water, Fang Yi is a fish. He can swim and hide in the dark attribute at will, and even completely hide himself in the darkness to enjoy the tortured appearance of his opponent. Just thinking about it, I feel that Lao Lu. If you pull people into it, no one will know if they die. It's simply a magical tool to destroy corpses and wipe out traces. Fang Yi took advantage of the situation and implanted the dark attribute he had gained into his back. With a sound of sizzle, Fang Yi felt a slight itch on his back, and then dark lines slowly emerged on his skin. These lines seemed to be eating away at his skin, emitting a cold breath. The twisted lines intertwined, terrifying and weird, like the totem of some dark god. Fang Yi looked at the mirror, and his back was covered with these black lines. Black air overflowed, and light flickered. Fang Yi could feel an irresistible dark force surging from the lines. This feeling was very similar to the cold and twisted feeling when he stepped into the extremely dark area, but he didn't feel it at all. When activating the Golden Sun breathing method, the golden blood in his body would even merge with the black lines, forming a strange black and gold light, which looked both powerful and mysterious. I'm about to break through the 6 stars, Fang Yi whispered. As a pioneer, sensing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and guiding it into the body is only the first step. What is more important is how to guide the spiritual energy to temper oneself, that is, practice. Ordinary pioneers are not talented enough. If there is no powerful enough practice method to guide them, their realm will easily stagnate for a long time. This is also the fundamental reason why most pioneers are currently in the 1st and 2nd star realms of Guifu. And people like Lin Yi, Danmo Wenju, etc. have good talents. When they reach the level of Galan, they have powerful forces behind them. With the blessing of talents and resources, their realm is far ahead of others. After extracting the dark attribute, my strength has also increased a lot, and I have already touched the threshold of 6 stars. Fang Yi exhaled lightly and activated the Golden Sun breathing method. In an instant, golden light lingered around him, and the surging golden blood poured him from top to bottom into a little golden man. And in this golden light, wisps of black air permeated. It looks both good and evil, very strange. Fang Yi felt the blood and qi surge in his body, and his spiritual energy was strong. After a while, he could start to break through the 6-star level. After a day's mission, Fang Yi and Lin Yi were very tired. After dinner, they went back to their rooms to rest. In a blink of an eye, it was the next day. 8 o'clock. Fang Yi opened his eyes on time and began to practice facing the rising sun. He didn't let out a long breath until a thin layer of sweat appeared on his body. My cousin didn't come to call me again today. Fang Yi pushed open the door and saw a bowl of steaming barbecued pork rice rolls on the dining table. The pink rabbit head slippers at the door were neatly stored in the shoe cabinet. Very good, I didn't go out in a hurry this time. He sat at the dining table and checked the information on his mobile phone. Yi Feng Haju, cousin, my teammates and I went out for a trial and will be back in the evening. With teammates, trial. From the words, it can be judged that she deliberately avoided me. This girl, does she think there is no chance of trial if she goes on a mission with me? Fang Yi understood instantly. Unexpectedly, Yi looked petite and quiet, but she was so independent in her heart. Fang Yi showed a relieved smile at the corner of his mouth. He could understand Lin Yi's approach. If it were him, he would not be willing to live under the protection of others all the time. It would be safe, but he would not grow at all. After all, flowers in a greenhouse are destined not to be the mainstream of this era. The future world is undercurrent, and every pioneer has the possibility of falling. It is a good thing that his cousin can have this awareness. After enjoying the delicious barbecued pork rice noodle rolls, Fang Yi went to wash the dishes, then collapsed on the sofa and started to browse the daily news. There was no news of great changes in the world today, so Fang Yi could only be forced to read some boring news, such as #the luminous script of the top actress and director #the goddess and the hot sheep at the concert and #7 colleges and 7 objects, the top sea king eats both men and women and so on. Fang Yi looked for a long time, but there was no useful news. The news section has always been like this. If it weren't for the announcement from above and the casualties caused by the great changes in the world, most people would not have realized that the world was changing. This also shows from the side that the impact of the spiritual energy revival on ordinary people is not very large, and the army and the spiritual association have completed their tasks very well. If my cousin is not here, what should I do today? Fang Yi leaned back on the sofa with his head raised. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the small flower on the windowsill. After Fang Yi's careful planting, this small flower has grown from an unknown and sloppy wild flower to a gorgeous home flower. The flower is not big, only the size of a palm, but it grows extremely delicate and beautiful. The color of each petal is slightly different. It looks like tender yellow, but it flashes a faint light, making the whole flower look extremely gorgeous. In the center of the flower, a drop of blood red is dotted in the middle, blooming with a strange glimmer, revealing an extremely dangerous feeling. Since Fang Yi took the pot of flowers back, he told Lin Yi the first time that she must not get close to it, let alone touch it. At that time, his expression was too serious, which made Lin Yi, who was still planning to help water it, stunned for a moment. But when Fang Yi let her feel the desolate breath coming from the flower, the smart girl immediately reacted. Plants with desolate attributes are not that simple. Fang Yi murmured, holding the flower pot in his hand. The flower pot in his hand was like a small pet that made no sound, stretching its branches and leaves to get close to him. Seeing this, Fang Yi looked out the window. The weather is nice, I'll take you for a walk. It was still the same forest. After all, it was the hometown of this desolate flower. Fang Yi held the flower pot and walked through the huge forest. The breeze was tinged with the luster of the morning sun, and the emerald green was full of unique vitality and leisure. The wind blew through the leaves and made a rustling sound. Summer was coming to an end, and autumn was coming. The birds in the forest were singing less and less. Fang Yi walked deep into the forest, and the surrounding trees grew taller and taller, almost covering the sky. He wanted to take the flower for a walk and let it go back to its hometown to play. It should be here, right? Fang Yi stopped beside an old tree. The tree looked a little wilted, and half of the trunk was withered. Fang Yi took the desolate flower out of the flower pot with 2 fingers, then squatted down and buried the flower in a small hole that had just been dug next to the tree. It was just a moment. Swish, just like a locust passing through, the desolate atmosphere swept over, and the surrounding plants were immediately plucked out of everything. The leaves fell, the flower buds trembled, the roots were drained of water, and became bent and shriveled. The tall banyan tree next to it, the branches and leaves that were once lush and green are now dry and withered, and the dry leaves are wailing in the breeze. The purple vines that were originally coiled around the stone have now turned gray and white, and the spreading stems are exposed to the sun, lifeless. It only takes a flower to bloom for the forest to be stained and devastated. But this flower bloomed too quickly. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding area was plucked out. For the plants on this land, if setting fire to the mountain is a slow torture, then this desolate atmosphere is like swallowing a gun and drinking bullets. One is still struggling and smoking, and the other is ascending to heaven before you can hear the sound. Fang Yi frowned slightly when he saw this, took the flower out, and put it back in the pot. People who often raise desolate attributes know this. Nature's ecology has an automatic adjustment function, and can automatically recover after being injured. It's okay to absorb it occasionally, but you can't be too reckless, otherwise it will be too much damage to the environment. Fang Yi held the flower, stepped on the bare ground, and continued to walk towards the depths of the denser forest. The land is barren and lifeless. The lush trees of the past have withered and fallen, and the branches are exposed to the sun like dead bones. The weeds on the land have also disappeared. The endless land is barren and cracked, without a trace of life, leaving only a dusty desolation. In the endless desolation, only the whistling of the wind echoes in the empty forest. Fang Yi bent down again to pick up the spiritual flower and put it back into the flower pot. He left a back figure facing the ground, hiding his merits and fame. Suck a few more places, and today's feeding task will be completed. The forest with revived spiritual energy is quite dangerous for other pioneers or ordinary people. There are many snakes, insects, rats and ants in the forest. This kind of creatures is troublesome in itself, and it is particularly easy to get close to the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. If you are not careful, you will join the glorious evolution. They evolve, and they hide and practice hard, but if they come out to attack humans, even with professional equipment or experienced survival experience, they will be hard to escape. Therefore, the forest after the spiritual energy was revived was more deserted than the forest before the revival. Even many experienced hikers and outdoor live broadcasters dared not come in. Fang Yi walked inside for an hour and did not see a single person. As for those evolved creatures, at this moment, the desolate spiritual flower lay quietly in his arms, and the extremely faint desolate breath drifted out, like weaving a fine spider web in the forest. The creatures that smelled the scent of the spiritual flower had no time to dodge, and did not dare to approach him within 10 meters. Fang Yi saw this and said softly, "The desolate attribute should be the top attribute among vegetation, with extremely high talent, enough to evolve into a king. If the vine had not grown in the air and wandered around unfixed, the height would also be another A-level zone." Fang Yi looked down at the desolate flower in his hand. The petals of the spiritual flower swayed in the wind, emitting a faint light, looking delicate and beautiful, like the most gorgeous color in the painter's pen. It is completely different from other flowers in the forest, especially the drop of blood in the middle, which is like the tears of the gods, and the breath it exudes is slightly sad. This flower is obviously full of vitality, but it also faintly reveals a smell of decay. If this is a painting, it will be put in the museum display shelf and auctioned at a sky-high price. But when it really appears in reality, it will only make people feel deeply depressed and fearful. Even ordinary people without spiritual energy will subconsciously frown and stay away when they see this flower. Under the seemingly beautiful appearance, there is a cruel crisis that corrodes everything. In the future, if the world changes drastically, and evolved creatures and anomalies invade the city, you will be my last line of defense. Fang Yi flicked the petals. The petals moved without wind, swaying slightly, as if they were hugging his fingers intimately and acting coquettishly. At this moment, a strange long howl came from the east, resounding through the depths of the forest. Faintly, some wolf howls were heard, with a little madness mixed in between the sobs, revealing a hint of ferocity. Fang Yi paused. His eyes looked in one direction, which seemed to be wolf howls, but there was a special smell in it, so Fang Yi immediately walked in that direction. East. This is already deep in the forest. On weekdays, even hikers who seek excitement will not step into it. The farther away from human society nature is, the more dangerous it is. At this moment, the howling of wolves echoed in the silent forest. Some wolves howl harshly and sharply, which makes people stand on end. Their howls are like angry roars, deep and hoarse, conveying the breath of survival and death. These terrifying wolf howls intertwined, echoing in this distant forest, making people feel awe and panic. Not far away, Fang Yi stood behind a huge tree, gently lifted the leaves that blocked his sight, looked at the wolf pack, and the mess in front of him was reflected in his pupils. As this, evolving, every wolf in front of him was wailing on the ground, as if they were experiencing some inexplicable pain. At this moment, their fierce and agile bodies were enveloped by a soft light, and each ray of light seemed to have a spirit, flowing on the surface of their bodies. A strong breath spread from them. Seeing this, Fang Yi frowned slightly. Has one evolved? Suddenly, a huge male wolf in the forest rolled over and tried to get up. It should be the wolf king of this wolf pack. At this moment, its gray fur was shining, and a faint rune pattern was rolling on its body. As the wolf howl intensified, these patterns became clearer and the light became brighter. Suddenly, the light on its body disappeared. The wolf king's fur stood up like a spike, his ice blue eyes were violent and fierce, and his whole body exuded a strong violent breath. It evolved successfully. The Wolf King's pupils flashed with cruel light, and his body stood majestically in the forest like a huge mountain, and his claws shone with cold light, as if they were as hard as steel. The current strength of this Wolf King should be enough to rival the pioneers of the 3-star level of the Ghost Axe. Trouble. Fang Yi frowned more deeply, and his expression gradually became solemn. This kind of thing is too ferocious. If they are all evolved, they will evolve into a monster army that cannot be restrained. If they are not dealt with as soon as possible, letting them enter the city will cause disaster. He just promised Galan a few days ago. Fang Yi's eyes suddenly became murderous. At this time, in the dark of the forest, a group of pioneers looked at this place with ugly faces. There is already a wolf that has evolved successfully, and its strength is probably at the 3-star level of the God Axe. It's over, we must stop them. Once this group of fierce beasts evolves successfully, the nearest Thai city will be the first area to fall. The fierce beasts are brutal by nature. Now that they have obtained the power of evolution, they will only be more terrifying. We must quickly notify the Spirit Association to come and deal with it. They looked at each other, and their pupils shrank. All those present were pioneers, but only the 1-star level of the Ghost Axe. They could feel that the wolves in front of them were powerful, far beyond their strength. At this moment, the place where the wolves evolved was filled with broken limbs and fragments. They evolved in pain, biting the deer, rabbits and other creatures in the forest all the way, leaving a bloody smell. They came here following the smell of blood. Seeing that the head wolf had evolved successfully, everyone's heart sank. It's over. If they don't stop it, these beasts will all evolve. At this moment, everyone is trying their best to contact the people of the Spiritual Chi Cultivation Association. Boom! Suddenly, a powerful and terrifying aura burst out from the opposite side, and everyone's face turned pale in an instant. What's going on? What is this aura? I feel my teeth trembling now. Yes, I feel it too. It's not the evolutionary aura of the wolf pack, but another more magnificent and powerful force. It's even more terrifying than the feeling that the wolf gave me. What happened? At this moment, everyone felt it. The terrifying decayed aura covered the sky and the sun, making people feel very depressed and cold, as if they were withering from the inside of their bones, and instantly invading everything around them. The forest in front of me was distorted all of a sudden. The trees were withered and dead, the land was cracked and dry, and the sky was covered with a layer of gray clouds. It was like the end of the world. Fang Yi planted the flower on the ground. The moment it was planted, a powerful green energy surged out. The ground cracked rapidly, and the branches and leaves withered. The whole forest was rumbling, and the power of desolation was like a flood, sweeping into the depths of the forest. In the forest, the pupils of the pioneers shrank, and they saw an extremely terrifying scene. The evolved wolves seemed to suddenly feel the crisis, and their hair stood up instantly. A woo, a long howl. The leader of the Ghost Axe 3 stars suddenly jumped in front of the wolf pack and looked around vigilantly. The next moment, at the end of the forest, a green turbid wave emptied out and rushed towards them. The huge wave was powerful and hit the sky directly, sweeping in with irresistible force. The head wolf's hair stood up, howling and humming, ready for battle. The strange thing was, the green did not fall on the wolf, but quietly penetrated into the ground under his feet and then disappeared. Gone. Everyone was stunned. Their eyes told them that it disappeared, but their intuition could feel that the breath did not leave, but went deep into the ground. As that, a flower. Where did this flower come from? Did it just grow out of the ground? Wait, there are more than one flower, there are so many flowers. When did they grow? A bright flower bloomed on the ground. Then, the ground began to bloom more bright flowers. These flowers were extremely terrifying, they seemed to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy and vitality, and began to bloom crazily. One by one, gradually, the sea of flowers surrounded the wolf pack in the middle, like a huge flower sea cage. Then, a more bizarre scene was reflected in their eyes. The spiritual flowers on the ground opened their petals, like a strange beast opening its mouth, swallowing the wolf in front of it into the stamens. Half of the wolf's body drooped outside, and the strong and powerful body quickly became thinner, and finally became thin as ribs. With a puff, the spiritual flower spit out the body of the wolf demon. There was no flesh left, the tendons and blood were all drained, leaving only pale bones. A perfect skeleton. The flower swayed, and after absorbing the vitality of the wolf demon, the red on the petals became more and more vivid. The pioneers saw this scene, their bodies numb, and the blood flowed backwards. The wolf demon's flesh and blood were all devoured. This is the desolate attribute. Desolate attribute. It is said to be the most powerful attribute among plants. It can decay everything and devour the vitality of all living things. However, the evolved wolf demon is clearly already at the 3-star level of Ghost Axe, but it still cannot resist the power of desolation. The wolf demon didn't even have time to struggle. It fell into these spiritual flowers, but didn't even survive for 3 seconds. So, isn't the strength of this flower stronger than the 3-star level of Ghost Axe? It's no longer a question of strength. Once this desolate attribute is unleashed, the vitality of the surrounding will be extracted by it, and thousands of lives will become its life. If we touch this breath, we will be decayed into a skeleton in an instant. Retreat quickly. The pioneers were pale and retreated immediately. But the spiritual flowers did not chase them. The spiritual flowers seemed to come specifically for this group of wolf demons. The sea of flowers surrounded the wolf demons, and one wolf after another was swallowed by the flowers. The speed at which the spiritual flowers dealt with the wolf demons was too fast. It was just like eating melon seeds, eating a wolf and spitting out a corpse. The wolves rolling on the ground were swallowed by the horrible petals before they could successfully evolve, and they were already reincarnated when they were spit out. After a while, the corpses on the ground became more and more, gradually piled up into a small mountain of bones, which was very magnificent. What a horrible power of desolation! As this considered fighting violence with violence. The pioneers' scalps were numb. The mobile phones in their hands suddenly vibrated. It was a message from the Spirit Association, which showed that the Spirit Association has received a report, and the destroyer team is heading to the place. Please evacuate in time to protect your own safety. Seeing this message, everyone was silent. At this moment, they all had the same thought in their hearts. Spirit Association, hurry up. If you come later, you may not even see a complete wolf demon. On the other side, Fang Yi bent down and transplanted the spirit flower back into the pot. The spirit flower that was killing people just now and was extremely fierce, was shaking slowly in his hand, as if silently asking, "Master, am I doing well?" "Well done." Fang Yi gently touched the petals to show his appreciation. The petals shook more happily. Fang Yi noticed that the spirit flower was more gorgeous than before. Originally, the spirit flower would bloom more beautifully after absorbing vitality, because it absorbed the vitality of the same plants and turned it into its own nutrients, but now, this kind of beauty has exceeded the limit and looks full of oppression. The red in the heart of the flower became more and more intense, condensing an indescribable power, like a sleeping giant. As this evolved, Fang Yi was slightly stunned. The edges of the petals reflected light slightly, like a mysterious rune flowing, exuding a deep and mysterious breath. The plants in the forest, which originally held their heads high and chests high, bowed down under the power of the spirit flower, as if they were showing goodwill to the spirit flower, with a pious attitude of obedience, and the leaves trembled slightly, as if solemnly swearing an oath. Notice this change. Fang Yi's heart moved. When he came just now, there was indeed no such situation. Even if the spirit flower absorbed vitality, it was forcibly extracted, draining the surrounding plants. But now, the plants actually actively submitted to the spirit flower. At this moment, Fang Yi had no doubt that if he planted the spirit flower in the soil again, there would be no need to extract it. The plants would actively offer vitality and allow it to be absorbed. After swallowing, there would be such a change. Fang Yi looked at the spirit flower in his hand, and he noticed that the breath of this flower had changed. If it was similar to the newly evolved wolf demon before, then now, this flower has a faint breath of vines in the air. Decayed and grand. After swallowing the evolved wolf demon, this spirit flower seemed to have become the master of the plants and achieved a special self-evolution. It turns out that I was right to implant the desolate attribute into plants. The desolate attribute is naturally compatible with plants, and they can actually rely on devouring vitality to become stronger and upgrade themselves. This is equivalent to me controlling a special pet that is constantly upgrading automatically. As long as I keep feeding it, it will cultivate and grow into a terrifying existence. What a pleasant surprise. Fang Yi's eyes lit up slightly. Under normal circumstances, mutated creatures, like the Forerunners, rely on absorbing spiritual energy to cultivate and grow. However, some special attributes can take a different approach. The desolate attribute is one of them, and it is also one of the most domineering ones. Devour vitality and strengthen yourself. This is the way of evolution of the desolate attribute. It seems that I have another powerful trump card that can grow infinitely. Fang Yi said with satisfaction. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.